welcome to the Aftershow. I am Max. This is Kat. We already have Dr. J. How are you doing?
Great. How are you, Max?
I'm doing really well. I have my matter ready, so we'll get it on. Let's get that link to the audience so they can start joining. And while we do that, let me remind you to do the social things like share, subscribe, send this to a friend, send this to your significant other, go to the corner, yes, the corner of your street, and you'll subscribe to Yerba Mate Talks. I almost say the said the other thing. Glad that I caught myself on time. All right, we have the link. It's pinned. We have Apollos. Hello, how are you? Your audio is not coming through. I don't know if you're speaking.
Hello.
Yes, there we go.
There it is. Ooh.
Check 1 2. That was fun.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are better atheists out there that could represent the case for atheism even better. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, Craig was pretty feisty and a bad faith interlocutor. So
fair enough. We'll get into that. But check this out, dude. I love this. Every time I get one of these messages, my heart just warms. Yerba Mate Talks. Max, I had Yerba Mate for the first time last week. OMG, it was different, but good. Yes, it's great. I love it. And there's so many people starting to try it out and like looking for it. I'm ecstatic about that. I love it. Welcome, Rubik's. How are you doing?
I am okay. Yes.
All right. Look at that. Zoomy. Yerba Mate is so good. Yes, I'm setting a trend. I can't believe that. That is so good. All right. So we are going to get started with the after show. And when we have one of the debaters, I like to ask them, do you think that you accomplished what you set out to do with your opening?
yeah, with my opening, I would say that I really laid the groundwork for what I would have liked to discuss. Craig was trying to come up with his arbitrary definition of evidence, and yeah, I didn't think that was really helpful for the progression of the discussion. He didn't really engage with the data points. But as far as performance goes, there's always room for improvement in terms of me enunciating my words correctly and being quick on my feet when it comes to answering objections. But overall, yeah, I do think that I set off what I would have liked to do, considering the polls in the end. 45% said Christianity was true, and then 37% or something like that said atheism was true. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yep, fair enough. All right, so Dr. J, thoughts on Apollo's opening?
I thought it was very well prepared. I thought a super good job preparing everything. There's different ways to kind of defend Christianity, and he decided to kind of go with, hey, there's a certain evidence. We think, the way the texts read and various eyewitness accounts or people argue whether those are eyewitness accounts. I thought he did a good job of laying those out. He was organized. He provided points to be able to go back and forth on. I thought his introduction was excellent.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. J. Rubik's.
I felt that you really wanted to stick to a script and you got upset when you couldn't stick to your script, which shows you really don't have all your arguments in place. If I'm honest.
Yeah, for sure. I got to work on the more real-time dialogue. I do tend to reference a lot of the information that I have on my slides, but yeah, that's definitely one area of improvement I'm working on. So
Right. Thank you so much, Rubix. And I took notes. So I would one sec. Oh, there we go. The biggest three arguments that I got. First of all, I have to congratulate you. We always say here, having a presentation is always a plus. It makes everything a bit more clear. It allows people to engage with what is being said and also provide some extra information that you don't have time to verbalize. So, very good on that. However, the three main arguments, the eyewitness testimony, the miracles, and the onomastic congruence, I don't think or either of those are good arguments for Christianity. You did try to touch on what I think is the best, which is the strong anthropic principle or the appearance of design. I think that's the best argument for Christianity. But quick thought: the eyewitness testimony. The scholarship, as I was searching, is that it's not eyewitness. That the people on the Gospels are not the people that wrote them. And a quick search will show you.
So Max, just to be clear, what you're saying is like John didn't write the book of John, is what you
No.
think. So if you want, I think for you to argue that, you need to be able to go beyond the Google search. Because if you say,
yes,
does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
you need to be able to explain in detail, why is John not written by John? Why is Matthew not written by Matthew?
For example,
if that's what you think.
In evidence from the text, in the purely literal sense, the authors talk about themselves in the third person. That is a clear indication that those people didn't write. You don't speak about yourself in the third person in general if you're the author of a book. Then then the scholarship, the consensus on scholarship, and the oldest manuscripts don't have the names there. So that would be kind of the best evidence to counter that argument. Then you touched up on miracles, and basically I don't think that gets you much, because for example, Mohammed, if you accept miracles, then Mohammed split the moon and rode on the Al-Burak and went to heaven. So that opens like a huge can of worms. And not only in the Abrahamic religions, it opens a whole can of worms for a bunch of other stuff like voodoo magic and that kind of a thing. So I also think that's not a very convincing argument.
Yeah, totally. And as far as like earlier you said how like the scholarship tends to favor that they were not eyewitness traditions.
Yeah.
I believe it is the case that most scholars believe that Mark was connected to Peter's testimony, according to the latest survey by Mike Licona. But ultimately, things like scholarship and consensus, ultimately what we're trying to do is argue from the data, and consensus may reflect some sort of truth behind that data, but ultimately, the way that people get PhDs is by challenging the consensus, I would argue. Because they always have to contribute something novel to the research. And so, yeah, like, I don't think we should be necessarily fazed by the idea that the consensus may be on one side or the other, but mostly, like, is the evidence well presented or argued for one side or the other? So,
sure, but an argument when we have the oldest manuscripts, you can make all the arguments you want. When we have
the manuscripts too.
The Gospel of John.
That's the other thing I forgot. But you mentioned like how like people wouldn't write themselves in the third person. I believe it was like Julius Caesar who writes himself in the third person for the Civil War. IP has his memory. No. Are the Gospels, who are the authors of the Gospels, like kind of video, and he shows like various sources from ancient Greco-Roman history that write themselves in the third person.
Yeah, I mean, you can find stylized things, but it's not the norm. Just because you find one.
Well, actually, Yeah, that's one of the things I was presenting earlier, was that it was actually the norm. Anyway, I don't want to like gish gala because I
I
know
mean,
this is your
Latin
show.
is unique
but
language in how it's written and spoken. I took it for 7 years, so
Oh,
it's
that's cool.
so.
Let me welcome na 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 Batman. How
Hey,
are you?
I'm good by yourselves.
I'm doing great. And then finally, the onomastic. I think that was something unexpected. But that being said, I do think that it's self-refuting in that if you're going to write a book, let's say I want to write a book about Victorian Britain, I'm going to use names of Victorian Britain era. So I don't think it's a novel thing. I hadn't heard it before, but I think it's self-refuting. But let me hand it over to Batman. No, sorry, Batman, you came last. Let me hand it over to Specs.
Hello,
Thoughts
can you
on
hear me?
Apollo's- Yes, we can
Yep.
hear you. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Yeah, Apollo's statement was pretty good from a Christian apologetics perspective. There was, no anecdotes, no just out there obvious stupidity that I've seen. Like, it was pretty good. He used real arguments, had a presentation, and it was a pretty well done opening statement, actually.
Yeah.
Like, even if maybe there wasn't eyewitness evidence, but for an opening statement, it was pretty good.
No,
He
I
presented
agree. I was just
he
going
presented
a
what
little
he
bit
thought.
into the
He
details.
presented what he claimed was evidence in a well-presented manner and used a bunch of ideas to back it up. So it was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that it was good. It's just based on my own position. I disagree with it being said, but I think it was great. Batman, now it's your turn.
Yeah, the one thing that I tried bringing up before, especially when it does come to the authorship of even the fourfold gospel itself, was the earliest record that we do even have of who it was that wrote the text themselves. And it says that they were written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And just like what was mentioned before as well, is that Mark was a companion of Peter, similar in the way too that Luke was a companion of Paul. Luke also, in the very first book of his gospel, also mentions that he recorded like eyewitness testimonies to make a compilation of what the account was that happened into like very great meticulous detail. And the information too that I was providing as well was from Saint Irenaeus of Lyons. He was, as was mentioned before, he is a disciple of Saint Polycarp. Saint Polycarp being a disciple of John the Apostle himself. And he's one of. The other one that's also most popular would be Saint Ignatius of Antioch. But setting that aside, Saint Irenaeus is also the person who we get the order of which they were released, as well as the fact too that Matthew also recorded his gospel first in Aramaic, which is used by the Syriacs to this very day. And in that book,
I need
where
to
he writes that
double-check
is in Against Heresies.
I would need to double check all of that because I don't remember a lot of that like from memory. But when you were giving me some of the evidence, Batman, a lot of it was from like 190 AD, and that's like 3 generations removed.
Not quite in that sort of sense, but if we are talking about like in that from Jesus to apostle to disciple then to disciple, sure, you could consider that within like 3 generations, but then you still have people who are the closest to the apostles. Not to mention as well is the fact that Irenaeus, obviously knew Polycarp. Again, Polycarp knew John. John lived an obnoxiously long time. He ended up dying around like the 100s as well. And if there was basically written anything about how we're not sure whether or not this was written by a scribe or whatever, they would have mentioned so. Just in the same way as well, like the Bible even mentions that Paul says in Romans that it wasn't him that was actually writing the book of Romans. It was being directed to was it Timothy? I forget the man's name. But he mentions that it was this particular scribe who it was that was writing Romans.
Sylvanus.
Sylvanus, thank you.
Yeah.
And so even in something like that, there's no reason for them to kind of like say otherwise. And Saint Papias, who 50 years earlier also recorded like saying that Matthew even wrote his gospel first in Aramaic as well. There's a few citations in there from Eusebius's church history.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then real quick regarding the manuscripts being too late, because I believe that was one of your objections, Max.
Yep.
So like the one thing we do have to remember is with textual criticism, this is just the residual evidence that has um, uh, been like extend to us like to this very day. But uh, like there are various different types of like manuscripts being circulated throughout various different churches. Like for example, Codex Vaticanus is 150 years separated from Papyrus 75. And yet they, in virtually every place, Vaticanus agrees with one of these early papyri. So like if we should only believe the manuscripts we have now were the only ones in circulation, we also need to account for like that how they could like copy from like one side of like the empire to the other side of the empire over like 150-year gap and still like get it accurately. So that would so a good hypothesis to rejoinder to that would be that there were manuscripts in circulation besides the ones extant to us to this very day. So anyway, like I know we kind of like went back and forth.
I understand the point, but you acknowledging that there might have been, it's an appeal to possibility. Yeah, there may have been, but the ones that we have don't have that. And when putting those things in a scale, I'll go down the route of what we do have. I'll read a couple of messages and we'll get into the opening from Craig. Bruce Wilford says, well, hello, everyone from the west coast of Tasmania. Dude, that is so freaking cool.
Hey.
That is so cool. Ragebot said, beep boop. Clive says, follow the GERD. Yes, follow the GERD and get your mate. Try to look for Sherba. We'll get the mate trend worldwide.
Yeah, get your mate.
Worldwide. Free thinking Aussie, can we please discuss this? Can it be? Will, you know what? When we go into the open discussion and we're kind of done, we'll save this one for later, because you almost went there, but you didn't go into there. And yes, just yesterday I had an interview and we talked a lot about this free will kind of a thing. So yeah, it's interesting. And all right, so for Craig's opening, I like this. Hello, Sherbers and Sherbets. Love it. All right, Craig's opening. He does get a few points subtracted, unfortunately, for not having a presentation. We say always, make a little presentation, just make some bullet points. It helps a lot with engagement from the people. It helps a lot with retaining. So, Craig, a little fault on that. Little slap on the wrist, make a presentation for next time. It's good. It's always useful. So how did you see Craig's opening, Apollos?
To be honest, I don't remember much of his opening statement. But from what I do remember, like listening to it, was a lot of appeals to Christians are ignorant because they believe X, Y, and Z. That's not necessarily like the version of Christianity I necessarily espouse to. So, like I remember he said something about like, global flood. Like I don't believe in like a worldwide flood that like covered the whole like globe necessarily. So, there's that.
Fair enough. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Random says, but you have to also deduct points when the PowerPoint is 400 pages. You didn't every seminar at university if you want. But there's a lot of people who do that, who have like they start building a presentation and debates happen. You add more to it and you end up with a bit like PhD Tony has a presentation like that. We saw Daniel Hakikachu had 150 page presentation for when his debate with Hinduism. I don't think that's a fair criticism. Whodunit said, pro tip, no. This one. Fuck, I had to nope out of that early Craig has become insufferable and is embarrassing to atheists. fair enough. That's your opinion. Dr. J, thoughts on Craig's opening?
I thought his opening, I thought it was, it wasn't super prepared, and he, kind of threw out some very surface level arguments. I just not sure Greg knows this material that well. It's not really his, thing. So, I wasn't real impressed with it. So I didn't think it was very good. I can't even remember his I've listened to his arguments. I remember what he was saying, kind of, but they were just sort of like, you guys have no evidence, prove it to me. I don't remember being able to follow it in any kind of organized form. Now maybe that's my fault, and I didn't follow well enough, but that was kind of my impression of Greg's opening.
No, I think that's fair, because that what I was saying before, slides help a lot with retention, and he did make some good points about some of the contradictions. There are better arguments, but I think it was fine. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like shiny. It wasn't something that you left you like, but it was acceptable, I would say. Rubik's here. How are thoughts on Craig's opening?
He definitely would have benefited from a slide or presentation, like everyone's been saying. He made a lot of common arguments from the atheist perspective. So the pretty much things that every Christian has probably heard a million times from atheists.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my main criticism.
All right, fair enough.
Yep.
Liz says, fair criticism so far. Yeah, that's the idea, to just discuss the debate and improve, not to bash someone. And I wish that if someone does a debate and watches the after show, that they can take something for their next debate. And it's good that we have, a plurality of views. Christian, atheist, Christian. Pretty good. And yeah, Dr. J said in the last after show, it has been one of the only ones that it was all theists. That was kind of cool. All right, Specs, thoughts on Craig's opening, please.
I mean, I like the humor. The humor was a bit, but yeah, no presentation obviously. So when he was talking about those verses, if he had them on screen so the audience could read them, would be good. Like if he had those verses here so the audience could read them and see the contradictions if there are any for themselves. Yeah, but it was, the usual arguments, contradictions, the lack of evidence. But it was a pretty average, but it was well done, I'll say, to Craig, because I'm a fan. But there are obviously a presentation would have been helpful, and really looking more into maybe the actual historical, like biblical scholarly opinions would have been good too.
Yeah, or some of the better arguments, like for example, doing a little bit of what Justin does from Deconstruction Zone. He goes a lot into the details of prophecies and how they're not fulfilled and that kind of stuff. I think that's a way stronger argument than some of the contradictions, which are surface level, and Christians have had about 2,000 years to come up with explanations for those.
Yeah.
Batman, thoughts on Craig's opening, please.
I was half an hour late into the stream, so I didn't catch that. So
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
Gotham needed me.
There you go. You win that round. I have. Well, Max, you have been practicing your pointing. That seemed spot on. I'm getting the hand of where the screens are. I just have to point to the other way. Up is the one that I could just point up. But yes, I also have another message I wanted to read. The way he acts with flirts is fine, but when it comes to religion, despite my hard atheist stance, it's not the same as debating objective reality. I agree. A lot of the comments, if you watch back the replay, a lot of the comment is, why is the atheist so angry? And Apollo seems like a nice dude. I don't think it could have gone down a different route. No echo for Dr. J. Yeah, we went back to StreamYard. It's all, we're just back just like before, so it's all good. It's all good. All right, now open discussion. Give us some of your thoughts, Apollos, on the open discussion. How did you expect it to go compared to how it went?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I would have expected Craig to bring up things regarding ethics because that was his last debate with a Christian. As a matter of fact, he actually said that like he was going to bring up a lot of like the biblical ethics right before we went on live, so that was pretty unexpected. But yeah, I wish we would have gone more into the nitty-gritty details, like, you know, that guy who talks about like failed prophecies, deconstruction zone would typically do. Yeah, I wish it was just honestly like he engaged more with the data and just instead of like coming up with this like criterion for evidence that like you have to like repeat it and it has to be in the future or something like that.
That part,
yeah,
honestly, for me, was a mess. I didn't understand what either of you was like.
yeah.
I was disagreeing with both of you at the same time. That was funny. Basil Problem says, what is Dr. J a doctor of? He's a doctor in awesome.
My
approve.
PhD is in theology, so my PhD is in biblical studies with an emphasis in theology, and I wrote my dissertation on the husband and one wife, or at least an aspect of the husband and one wife in 1 Timothy 3:2. So that's what my PhD is in.
Dr. J, would you be willing to share, like, could we do a live stream of your PhD dissertation? I would love to.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to tell you about it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Love it. And they asked, I'm sorry, I don't know what their pronouns are. What university?
Midwestern, so that would be one of the Southern Baptist seminaries. It's in Kansas City.
Cool. Anything else? Sorry, Apollos, I think I cut you off.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, like I honestly don't know why he was so angry. Like I'm thinking like it was probably some like rhetorical way to like assert his dominance like throughout the discussion, but like I've seen him like debate against like Andrew Wilson, and he was a lot more charitable than Andrew Wilson. But yeah, I don't know what's up with him this time around, so I'm sure there are better atheists out there, like I said, who can present the position for the non-resurrection of Jesus even better, like, you know, deconstruction zone. But yeah, like those are my thoughts initially.
Yeah. He just needs to put in a little bit more work and kind of match the energy a little bit, because it's like with flat earthers, I understand it's like they're idiots. You can just make fun of them. Whodunit says, oh wait, Dr. J actually has a PhD. I thought it was just a pseudonym. Props, mates. That's a ton of work. Yeah, we wouldn't let him just call himself doctor if he wasn't a doctor.
Yeah, we don't let people call each other crazy things like comic book characters or anything like that. We don't allow any of that shenanigans around here.
Yes, no, we don't. I would mock him if he did that. I would mock him until he changed it.
Yeah, I mean, who do you think Dr. J is? Kent Hovind? Jesus.
Hey, John.
Take that back immediately.
Hey, John, how's it going, man?
Has anybody else
how's
read Kent Hovind's dissertation? It is hilarious.
I did. It's
Emma Thorne did. It was hilarious.
Hello, my name is Kent Hovind, and in this essay, that's how you start an essay in.
It's for a book.
grade.
He like. It's not really. Didn't he just like copy his lecture speech word for word and just chuck it in? Because it was years since I've seen it. But yeah.
It's a fascinating read.
I think the third line is. I think the third line is, as you can see in my slide number.
Whodunit says, so Batman is Batman, but of course we have two Batmen. We have two Batmen. We have this Batman, and then we have DJ Batman.
Yeah, as Kent Hovind says, I'm not prepared for that.
All right, we are going into the open discussion portion of the debate, but let me hand it over to John for just a moment. Give us a little bit of a summary of both openings, if you will. I need to hit the toilet and be right back.
No problem. I am going to be perfectly honest. I actually started listening to this debate, and I almost immediately fell asleep. No joke, literally almost immediately fell asleep. So I actually heard almost none of it. I didn't realize you guys had gone live, and I was listening to it on double speed really quickly, so I've missed the vast majority of it. It was pretty much. I don't think I actually needed to watch the debate. There was nothing new in it at all of any kind. And as much as I think Craig's a fairly decent person, I've never really liked his debate style, his debate tactic. He did his usual supreme arrogance, and I don't like his debate style. I struggle to get on with it. Like, I actually found myself rooting for Andrew Wilson when he did the Christian ethics versus secular humanist ethics at the debate con. That's how bad of a debater I think he is. So actually, I've just joined mostly to hang out with you guys. But yeah, when I went through it and essentially did the cliff notes, there really was nothing new, and Craig's attitude towards religion, whilst justified towards flat earth, when you're talking to a sincere Christian who isn't poeing, I think his attitude actually loses the audience, to be honest with you. But that's kind of where I'd got to with it. You're muted, Max.
Yeah, Max, you're muted. I'll go ahead and jump in here. The open discussion, I'm with you, John. I couldn't even quite finish it. I can't handle Greg that long. So from everything I know from him personally, like as a person, he's like a totally fine person. Maybe
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe he's a nicer person than me. I have no idea. But his debate style, I can almost feel myself like getting upset or like anxiety or something. It's just like I just can't hardly take it. You know what I mean?
Do you know how I respond to it? It's cringe. It's cringe. You know, when like you're watching somebody do something, it's like when you know, when you're watching somebody do something stupid and you feel embarrassed for them.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. So I that's kind of how I felt about the whole thing. Now, obviously I'm a little biased, though. I think if you want to watch a debate where the Christian really, really struggles, you watch Bart Ehrman's debates. Bart Ehrman's the guy, right? He knows the stuff, and he can absolutely twist people and not. So I think if we reviewed a Bart Ehrman debate, you'd all think I was an atheist there for a while, because I've seen him mop the floor with some people. But in this particular debate, I feel like Greg got uncomfortable not knowing the material well. It's not his main thing. Obviously, some of this material I don't know well. Yes, I have a PhD in theology, but I mean, I only know the parts that I studied, which was a very specific thing. And so therefore, if you're not like into it, you don't know the material well, he seemed to have to sort of, you know, quickly move into getting upset and interrupting and talk about the meta argument and claiming that Apollos talked too much and dominated the conversation, even though he was clearly dominating the conversation. And you know, anyway, so I couldn't even finish it. It was too hard to stomach.
In fairness, like obviously you've got a theology degree, so I mean, and the same similar as with Issa, I imagine you guys will know the literature better than most people do. I mean, I read the last time I read my King James, I was 21 years old. It was 20 years ago. And in fairness, I have read the Quran, I've read the Torah, and I've read the King James. I've read them all at least twice, cover to cover, because I was kind of in my late teens, early 20s. I was searching. It felt like there was something missing. I read all of it, and then I fell into hard TM atheism. You know, went along, you know, got dragged along on the bandwagon with Hitchens, and then came out the other side and still felt something was missing. So now I've ended up in this sort of agnostic position where I can't force myself to believe in any of it, even though I'm sort of like hoping that somebody can convince me, but my rational brain won't let me be convinced. So from that perspective, I guess I probably am as close to unbiased as you can get. And with Craig, I think, he doesn't know the material, which leaves him in the position where he can only attack it using either a very surface level understanding of the literature, and there's a huge amount of hypocrisy in the literature. I mean, even the prophecies that they claim to be fulfilled aren't actually accurately fulfilled. That they bend over backwards to make it seem as though they are. Jesus's time of birth isn't correct. His place of birth isn't correct. It's there's a lot of stuff that Craig could attack, and I'm by no means an expert. It would just be nice if, and I don't know if I'm being unfair by feeling disappointed when I watch these debates, but I very rarely see a novel argument.
Well, yeah, it's hard to come up with something that has been talked about. Come up with something new of something that has been talked about for 2,000 years. So it's hard to bring up new stuff. They try. But let me hand it over to the man, the legend, the Isa Kabir, Prince of Peace. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing excellent. Thank you.
So was that
I didn't know we started.
Clapping?
I didn't know we started a half an hour ago. So
well, I mean, it starts. The time for the after show is always tentative. I put it in an average of how long they last. But if the debate ends, the after show starts, and if the debate goes long, the after show starts later. Always.
I get that. The thing was I was actually reviewing the past parts too, so I didn't even know that it ended.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, oh, wow, okay. But I said, let me just check just in case. So I guess I can. You want me to just cover the openings and stuff like that?
Yes, please.
Well. What we always like. We always like having a presentation. We want folks to be prepared. That's very important for us in debates. So, Apollos did have a presentation. There were resources cited. I think that's important. It's the same thing like when we were talking about Stuart versus Dan. Neither of them had a presentation. Craig didn't have a presentation. I think it's important that you do. I felt, honestly speaking, that Craig's was a little bit cynical. And I was like, to just say, well, we have no evidence that, that God exists. And I'm like, okay, that's an assertion. That's not really an evidenced proved position. I don't think that was a very strong way to go for Craig. I think there are better lines of argument that he could have taken if he wants to take this type of route. You can't be glib with your opponent. You have to be like, okay, let me. You have to be able to steel man your opponent's position. You have to grant, the strongest position to their case and then deconstruct from there. That's how you can make really good arguments. I don't feel that Craig did that. I do think it was interesting. I think Apollos had an interesting position. He went through the different material. He used scholars and stuff to kind of argue that. I do think it's a little hard to use scholars and then connect them to supernatural things like resurrection. I would say scholars would agree overall that there was a crucifixion. This is what usually biblical scholars will go with. But arguments like the resurrection are a little bit more difficult to kind of argue using that type of line. So I don't know if I would kind of put them together. I would use a different kind of route using the religious spiritual stuff and then try to separate it. I would make a clear delineation and be like, okay, this is the scholarly argument that we have crucifixion, but the things about like the empty tomb and stuff, this is more like a religious spiritual argumentation. That's a little bit more difficult, and I would have taken a different route with that. But I appreciated that presentation. I think it was really good. Did you talk about like the open discussion too? Did you cover that also, or are we?
No, we're going into that. I just wanted to give you and John came in one after the other, so I wanted to give you guys a summary. And yes, who has a cat that is not on screen but it's meowing? Put the cat on screen.
DK,
me.
you know whose cat it is. Do not tempt him to play that song again, please. Just
You might get a couple of minutes of silence once more. And me just dancing.
yeah, with Max
Because that's the
dancing.
gist now. That's a joke.
Here he
We
is.
failed the first time, and then he's a black. Oh, I love Little Panthers.
Can
I
I
love Little Panthers. It's so good. I love them. I would like to have a black cat now, so I have like a white one and a black one. But
He's
that
an
might
asshole.
lead me down the route of starting to collect cat colors,
You need to
and
get a
I
black
don't
one.
want to be a cat lady.
You need to get a black
He's
one, so Mrs. Markley can do an AI generated image of each of them sitting on each shoulder, one like
Yeah.
the good and one like the bad. You know, the yin and the yang. Then
That
that'd
would
make
be
it great.
so cool.
Can I just quickly see
alright.
if I ask Issa something about that he's just said with regards to the openings? My quick query is, so I have an issue with a lot of these debates, and Craig did it here as well. From the philosophical perspective, I don't like when atheists use atheism as a synonym for agnosticism, because the theist, either a god does or does not exist, and these are the only two potential ontological states. But when we're talking about if somebody is an atheist or if somebody is a theist, we're not claiming that they actually have knowledge of the ontology of our universe. So by default, we're talking about their belief position, not the ontology. So from my perspective, Craig is arguing the atheist position, which means he should be arguing for the state that he believes that a god does not exist, not just the position that he's not convinced. And he seems to think that that alleviates him of a burden of proof. So when he comes across a Christian and he is asked to argue against the Christian, his default position is there's no evidence for it. Well, firstly, there is evidence for it. The claim itself is evidence. It's essentially a witness statement, because somebody is stating that they themselves have been convinced, and this is why. In the same way as if somebody witnessed a mugging in the street, that doesn't necessarily mean that it ontologically actually happened, but they believe it happened. And this isn't a court of law here. We're talking about justifying beliefs, not necessarily actually demonstrating that the ontology is true. So when he says something like there's no evidence, that frustrates me. And also the core position itself frustrates me. So I'm just interested if you, Issa, and Dr. J as well for that matter, as given your
I mean, we
doctorate,
can ask everyone.
what you guys, yeah, but of course, but what people make of that, because you know, from this perspective, I think the theists actually attack these debate questions more honestly, because they're at least sitting on they've parked their belief over an actual ontological square, if that makes sense.
So I think that's a really interesting point that you brought up. If I can go first on this, I think the point about evidence, what's demarcated as evidence, just because you don't like, you could say, I don't think that this is a valid evidence for me, but that you make a valid point. Is that not, that's still evidence, whether you agree with the evidence or you don't agree with the evidence. You can try to deconstruct the evidence. It is interesting. He did make the claim that, you know, God is not real. He asserts that, but I think I was not convinced that he made an argument proving that God is not real. I think he just made the claim and he just kind of left it at that. He's like, okay, there's these problematic elements. Okay, there's contradictions. All right, you could still reconcile these things. People can make reconciliatory positions even if things appear to contradict. That doesn't make it false. You're doing an external critique, not an internal critique. You're imposing your worldview onto the worldview of this religion. And I think for me, it's not persuasive. It's an unpersuasive argument to take. And I think he kept kind of pushing that. He's like, yeah, it's illogical to my standard. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but that doesn't prove that your standard is the accurate standard. You know, there's more work that has to be done. And you can't be glib with your opponent. And I think that I've seen Craig in these theological debates. I think he does a lot better in flat earth debates. He kind of takes the flat earth energy and he brings it into the theological space. And it's hard because his opponents know theology a lot better than the flat, because flat Earth, there's not really much to work with. Like, I remember I played a flat earther, right? And I think I'm one of the best flat Earth debaters I think that are around. And I did a couple weeks of research. You know,
We don't talk about that. That never happened.
oh, it never happened. Yeah, it's erased
That
now,
didn't
right?
happen. We have to do it again.
I have to do it again.
Also, it's the case that you are much more likely to be able to convince me that a God exists and he created the universe yesterday, as what's the phrase, even with the holes in my socks. You are more likely to convince me that is actually true than that the Earth is flat.
The flat Earth, I feel you. The flat Earth argument, really, there's not much ground. As a person who like really went deep into research, so I think Craig really thrives in those spaces. But it's very hard because you can't just take that same energy and just copy and paste it. Because again, like even when he was debating Andrew Wilson, when he comes to the opponents like this who have certain rhetorical skill and maybe research the literary elements, you have to be prepared for that. And I think,
well, that Andrew Wilson, that morality between like human secularists,
Secular humanism.
Wilson was toying with Craig there. He was just
Wilson was.
It was like a ragdoll.
And that's the problem. Like he can't come in. You can't come in with hubris. You have to understand. You need to know your opponent's stuff, and you can't take them for granted and just be like, "Oh well, I know better." I'm like, no. You have to go in really strongly, and religion's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah.
You know, as a person who spent most of my life studying religion, it's a very difficult topic. There's a lot of different nuances and complexities. You can't just come in and be like, yeah. You know, like the emo.
Is that your King James, Max?
No, I don't have King James. I'm from Latin. This is La Biblia Latinoamericana. This is a Latin American Bible. It has salsa. It has merengue.
Burn him at the stake. Burn him at the stake.
Yes, it talks about mangoes.
I love it.
Yes, it has the Virgin Mary. It's
that's
kind
cute.
of Catholic and that kind of a thing.
That's cute. One thing to add to that though, it's like on the point, it's like you're coming in and you're acting like the emo or goth kid in high school, right? You're like, wow, all this stuff is so stupid. I'm beyond it all. I'm much smarter than this. And if you come in with that attitude, it's not going to end well for you. And that's kind of what that's how I felt when Craig kind of came in to engage with religion, that you're just kind of being glib and snide and cynical. I'm like, this is not going to work well with you. You've got to take it seriously, and you've got to be honest and earnest with the text. And that's just, I love Craig. He's a cool dude. I'm just like, but I think this approach to religion is not the right way to engage it. That's my personal opinion.
Especially because a lot of people have a sympathetic view on he's coming at from the hard atheist TM position, and there are a huge number of people that watch these debates that are not in that position. They have a degree of sympathy for it. Sorry, Dr. Joe, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, and I was going to say the Christian apologist has thousands of years of people arguing for Christianity, and so they can do a ton of reading and get a lot of arguments. Now, obviously, atheist has plenty of material to read as well to counter it. It's just Craig hasn't read it. That's the problem, Like you got to actually do the work, and that's an issue.
100%.
What I think, I've been an atheist all my life, and it is hard to make an argument for a positive argument for the non-existence of God. You can only do it through a modus tollens and it has some problems which I still haven't been able to reconcile. I still don't have it neatly wrapped up. So I'm working on it, but it's hard as hell. Let me welcome Leo. How are you doing?
Hi, Leo.
Okay.
He's just quickly investigating who's stolen the sleeves of his shirt.
Let me ask you, Apollos, who has been a little bit silent. Let me ask you this: who would you like to debate? Who do you think you would have an atheist Christian debate that you would enjoy having? That
Me.
Go against Aaron Ra.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Everybody
Hold on,
says
let-
Aaron.
Hold on,
Everybody
let me
says
ask
Aaron, but Aaron
Sorry,
is
sorry,
admittedly
sorry,
not
Apollo,
that good
sorry.
with philosophy.
Let me ask him.
Gotcha. Well, to be honest, like I would like go against like someone like a scholar, to be honest, who would engage with the data a little bit more faithfully. Like I remember without like getting into details, but like I remember I was talking with Derek from Myth Vision about how we could possibly like host something regarding a topic like that. Something more specific though, not something as nebulous as like, is Christianity true or is atheism true? Probably something more along the lines of, was Jesus a failed apocalyptic prophet? But as far as like specific people, like I think Alex O'Connor is a really good faith interlocutor, but even I haven't done enough reading to reach his level.
Is exceptional. I really, really like his
I like
attitude,
him,
the way he takes
I think
it.
he's really good faith. I don't think that he's as up to speed on like arguments for atheism as a lot of other people are. Honestly, if I'm being honest.
Where do you think he falls down?
There's a lot of like professional philosophers that I think are really brilliant and really good and have some pretty decent argumentation, but I don't think that they're not somebody I would choose to go up against some of the more popular theistic debaters like a Jim Bob or an Andrew Wilson or
I think
those are more like blood sports, as they call it, debaters. But I think that even somebody like William Lane Craig, like if I was going to pick somebody to debate him, it would be somebody like Dan Linford, because I know that Dan Linford is actually meaningfully going to challenge a lot of the things that Craig says that are just not correct.
The blood sport guys, I think, are optically they look like good debaters because they're rhetoricians. Whereas when you're having, I mean, the problem is like the debate has its origins in formal written debates. Like there's a legitimate back and forth going on here with time to think and an ability to critique one's argument, do a bit of research into it. That's when you see these like staged debates, they're not philosophical debates. This is not how like the philosophers of old or the logicians of old had these discussions. I would argue that almost all of it is in the realm of blood sport. The number of times I've watched a debate and then gone away and had to think about it, watched it back again, maybe gone and done a bit of reading on it, and it's only sort of like after a few thousand calories and several hours of thinking about it that then a question occurs to me to ask the other person that would have fundamentally put a hole in their position that you don't get the opportunity to do at the time. Because it's just so fast paced, and these questions that are being discussed, we treat them like the atheists treat them as if it's a simple question that they already know the answer to, because it's obvious, man. It's not.
Well, I mean, it is obvious to me.
It depends on what the question is.
Yes.
If a Christian asks me, do you think that if Jesus truly resurrected from the dead, that's evidence for the existence of God? I would say that's evidence for the existence of God, but it's not strong evidence for the existence of God, because there's a variety of non-God things that I can imagine up that could have risen a human from the dead, like extraterrestrials with technology we've never heard of. Like there's so is it evidence? Yeah, but then that comes down, and I think when I first clicked in on this, Max I think was mentioning something like this. It comes down to how you understand what evidence is. I think a lot of people have probably not the best developed ideas about what evidence is. I think evidence is quite. I think it's broad, but I also think it's not broad at the same time. So I take evidence to include two things. Number one, evidence is really given in terms of expectations number one, and number two, evidence is given in terms of probability raising. So Y is evidence for X just in case Y, number one, is expected given X, and number two, raises the probability of the truth of X. That's what it means to say that Y is evidence for X, in my opinion. And I would say, from my reading and my understanding, that almost everyone in like philosophy of science, epistemology is going to take a similar view. Not the same, but a similar view with respect to evidence.
Yeah,
that it involves this notion of expectation as well as this notion of probability raising.
All
Well,
right.
people have a
one
habit
second,
of.
because
Sorry.
Apollos looks like he wants to say something, and
Yeah.
then I'm
Oh
going
no, it's all right.
Back.
I just have my thumb onto the mic, but yeah.
I just
Oh,
want
but feel free to jump in. We
Yeah, feel
like
free.
that when we have debaters.
Yeah,
we like
I just
to
wanna-
give them
I
as much
just-
time as they want.
Yeah, I get that. I just wanted to address that thing about what everyone, John and other people, about the atheist. You can't just say there's no evidence for God, because that's an agnostic can do that. That's fine. But as an atheist, you have to provide evidence that there is no God. Atheism isn't just saying I don't know or there is no evidence. It is a belief actively that there is no God. So you have to provide. You can't just get away with saying there's no evidence. It's not good enough, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
It's also not
And I
true
say-
that there's no evidence. There
And
is
I say-
evidence for God. It's just, in my opinion,
And even if
weak.
there wasn't any, you can't just come to a debate as an atheist who has the position, I believe there is no God, and just say there's no evidence. It's not good enough. I'm sorry. And I say this as an atheist.
I agree with Specs 100%.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Matt Dillahunty has probably done the most damage in terms of popularizing this position. He attempts to abandon his burden of proof by stating that he's an atheist when he's actually taking an agnostic position, which is the I'm not convinced position. Which the I'm not convinced position. Sorry, excuse me.
They're there.
Is John on mute? John was saying something.
I was talking and then I got like a frog in my throat and I needed to cough.
Oh,
so
okay.
I didn't want to cough in everybody's ears, so I did mute myself out of politeness. He abandons he attempts to abandon his burden of proof position because Dillahunty states that and I'm not sure exactly why he does it. I think he's not a philosopher, but I think he's done too much reading on the subject of like doxastic belief and what the distinction between beliefs and knowledge, for him to not know what he's doing. But I think it's like atheist just sounds better from a marketing point of view than agnostic. So and that annoys me because it puts him in the position. But then he uses it as a tool. A debate is billed as, and he approaches these debates with such a supreme confidence, and that's kind of the same as what Craig's done here, and with what Leo was saying with regards to evidence. And this it mirrors my position very precisely, actually. What people tend to do when they say there's no evidence is what they've done is, a statement that somebody makes, a fact or a piece of information that somebody can present, in most cases will either fall on the affirmative or the negative side of the argument, at which point it counts as evidence for or against the argument because it adds more confidence to the positive or the negative conclusion. What people tend to do is state, well, that's not evidence, because they look at how it's not sufficient evidence. It doesn't have a sufficient evidential standard for them, but they're not the arbiter. They're acting as though they're the arbiter of what evidence is, which is a supremely arrogant position to take.
I used to use the same
I
definition of
100%.
evidence that Aaron Ra used to give, where Aaron would define evidence as and I'm not gonna give it exact. I used to be able to give it like almost exactly the same way that he did, but what is it? A fact or a data point that is concordant with one possible conclusion over all the others, or something along those lines. I like if you 3 or 4 years ago would have asked me what I think evidence is, that's how I would have defined it. But I have come to realize that that's not a good definition of evidence, and the main reason for that is evidence does not comport with only one conclusion. You can have evidence for a multitude of conclusions, and this is where in the philosophy of science you start to deal with things what are called underdetermination, where so rather than defining what underdetermination, and I hate doing this, people like Isa and Max will know I hate doing this because I don't like giving examples where it's a definition that you should be giving, but at the same time, with this concept, an example is really the best way to sort of conceptualize what underdetermination is, just for those that don't know. So if you saw me walking down the street toward you and you heard a metallic jingling in my pocket, that could be explained by me having loose change in my pocket.
Yeah.
But me having loose change in my pocket isn't the only possible explanation. It could be I could have keys. I could have like keys to my house or something in my pocket. I could have
Gold
jewelry.
nuggets.
I could have jewelry in my pocket. Pretty much anything that makes a metallic jingling sound, I could have it in my pocket. So the mere fact that you hear a metallic jingling sound in my pocket determines whether it's keys, whether it's coins, whether it's something else. Underdetermination is this notion that you have evidence, but the evidence isn't enough to pick out any one potential explanation over any of the others. It could equally be keys in my pocket just as much as it could be coins. But now suppose you saw me walk out of the local convenience store with a soda pop in my hand and a metallic jingling sound in my pocket. Given this extra bit of data, it's now more likely that it's loose change than that it's keys. And so this notion of underdetermination is this idea that you've got evidence for some conclusion, but it doesn't pick out that conclusion over any other potential conclusions that explain that piece of data. And just to wrap this up, I've been talking a lot, but just to land the plane, that's
I've got a question
with the old definition of evidence, like Aaron Ross' definition of evidence, is that it completely ignores the concept of underdetermination, which I don't think that you can do.
So if
Right,
I was
yes.
I've got a question for Leo. Just to clarify. So if a piece of for evidence to be considered like underdeterminate, it has to point to that conclusion, but it can also point to others as well. Is that
yes? It's sort of this idea that X could explain Y, but
it can also explain Z.
Explain Y equally as well as X, at least given what we currently have. Maybe can I give some extra facts, pick X over Z, or vice versa, but...
So there's a couple of ways of approaching this in order to explode.
John, give me 1 second. Anything you would like to say before you go, Isa? No, Dr. J.
No, great to see you guys. It was I thought it was good job. Apollos, thank you so much for coming. Always makes it better. We get chatty. We probably haven't let you talk enough. Sorry about that, but thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to have you here. I got a haircut.
You did not ask me permission to leave.
My hairstylist is gonna go to bed, so I need to get a haircut and take a shower. So I'll see you guys later.
We all know that is code for booty
Don't
hole.
you dare click that leave studio button. I'm telling you.
I do have to say I am actually in booty calling right now, so you can make fun of me.
Okay, all right.
Well, right now.
Thank you, Dr. J. Take
See you
care.
guys. Yeah.
See you, Dr.
Good seeing you.
All right. John was going to say something, and then I want to read a couple of messages, do a little housekeeping, and we'll continue on. This is great. This is great. I'm loving it.
So the with what Leo was saying there, there's a couple of ways of thinking about it. You can think about it from or examples or ways to think about it. One of them is from the legal position, and one of them is from a philosophical, more philosophical position. The legal position, what Leo's just said there, is probably the distinction between the beyond a reasonable doubt. There's a particular piece of evidence that would draw you, that would lead to one possible conclusion and exclude all others. And then there is something called the preponderance of evidence, which is you get so much evidence that points you in one particular direction, where one individual piece of evidence in and of itself wouldn't allow you to come to that conclusion, but so much of it increases your confidence in the conclusion that you've come to. From a philosophical point of view, an example that I would give here is, obviously we're talking about atheism, theism, and agnosticism. Well, it depends what level we're talking about, because if we're just talking about from the deistic point of view, you could have a piece of evidence that would fall on the positive side from the deistic level, but it doesn't tell you which particular God actually exists. There could be that the piece of evidence that would point in from at the deistic level, any theist should in principle be able to pick up and use as a piece of evidence for their God, but it doesn't exclude any of the other gods.
Yeah, that is usually a big problem when it comes to evidence. Let me read a couple of messages. Oh, before that, we are already at the 3,000 hours we needed of watch time to get the monetization. YouTube just needs to catch up, so we're all good there. We probably don't need people to just, give us a hand with that, wink wink. So you can just go back to normal watching the channel. But in the meantime, if you want to collaborate, I'm leaving the only source that we have right now, that is that link. If you want to, send a tip, a little change, toss me a coin, toss us a coin as the channel, right? You can do that there. Let's get to some messages. It's a Rubik's. She felt bad about the cat interrupting, but cats are not the interruptions here. We love cats, so it's okay.
Every single one of you better send a super chat.
We don't have super chat.
I'll be watching. And if you don't send a super chat, I'm going to be sending something to you. Okay.
Oh, Max, I just want to ask you a question.
Yeah, guys, if you don't send a super chat, Leah, we'll find where you live and we'll come and rip the arms off your shoulders too.
I will release a wild raccoon.
So is that why we couldn't send super chats before? Because you can't send super chats to a channel that's not monetized?
Yes, we are. Yes, but we have the requirements are met. Just YouTube needs to update, so it should take about like 2 weeks.
I was gonna say it can take a couple up to a couple of weeks, I think, for shit to kick in and everything, as far as I know. So.
Yeah, but the requirements are met, which is the important part.
Once those super chats are there, I better see every fucking one of you sending one, or you were gonna get the wild raccoons in your house. And I'm telling you, you ever tried to sleep at 3 a.m. with like 6 wild raccoons loose in your kitchen? Don't send a super chat, you'll find out.
Leo, I live in a uni dorm, so it's not far off.
Hold on, I have a bunch of messages to read. Fun fact: Bart Ehrman's nephew is a childhood friend of mine. That's cool. I took Latin from Bart Ehrman's brother. Even cooler. CK says Isa is barely prepared from the dates he's been having and the sheer amount of booty calls he gets every day.
These calls or something nicer than a hoodie. If he's getting random booty, he needs to look better than just a hoodie. You know what I mean? Like if you might want to say a nice polo, a nice shirt, maybe some cologne.
CK says, kidding, love you, Isa. I don't like when someone asks, Aikildero says, I don't like when someone asks if atheism is true, like the debate poll. That's an incoherent question. Atheism isn't a true or false proposition.
I'm afraid
strong disagree.
No, I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree as well. I'm going to disagree as well.
Atheism isn't, there's an ontological fact of the matter to be found here. Therefore, it can either be true or false.
Yeah, atheism is I believe there is no God. That is a true or false claim. It's not I don't know, like I said before.
What I don't understand is why not just say that atheism is a proposition and it's true? Like, is it hard to say that atheism is
that's kind of the thing, too, right?
It's certainly not hard to defend that atheism is true. I mean...
That's what atheism TM is they're the ones saying, especially, that there is no God.
Yeah, unfortunately...
I'm an atheist. That's the position I take as an atheist. As an atheist TM.
Atheism TM.
I don't know what atheism TM is. I just take atheism to be the disbelief in the existence of God or gods.
Honestly,
that is the proposition that God or gods exist is a false proposition. That's what I take atheism to be.
Atheism sounds like something David Wood would say, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with the concept.
So the reason
that's
the reason
actually
they-
been what it's accoladed well before even David Wood got popular.
Oh, that's
that goes
where I
that
heard
goes
it
back
from.
to that goes back to no, that it was well before like he
It goes
even
back
talked
to, I
about
think,
it.
the Four Horsemen.
Um,
Four Horsemen.
yeah,
movie.
exactly. Hitchens, Sam Harris,
Yeah.
Hitchens,
Dawkins,
Dennett,
Daniel Dennett. Yeah,
Hitchens, Harris, Dawkins, and Dennett. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
R.I.P.
Uh,
Don.
One second. Next, couple more messages, and we'll continue. Base of Problem says, Apollos, did Paul write all of the epistles?
So I do take that the pastoral epistles were authored by Paul, and now he may have used a scribe. Stephen Boyce has done some really good work showing that just from word similarities, you can't just infer that the pastoral epistles are somehow like non-Pauline, because you could use the same argument for Philemon, and but the fact of the matter is those are personal. Those are different contexts by which those epistles were addressed to. So like First and Second Timothy and Titus were all personal letters, and so was Philemon, funny enough, and no one doubts the authorship of Philemon. So Stephen Boyce has done a really good interview on what's his face, History Valley, from Jacob Berman, describing that whole argumentation. But yeah, I do take it, except for Hebrews. I don't know who wrote Hebrews, so.
Yeah, in general, what I'm aware of is that the scholarship on that agree that there are some that are written by Paul and some that are not.
Not all of them were not written by all of the Pauline epistles were not written by Paul. I can grant that all of them were. It doesn't change the truth value of Christianity. Like I can
Even if he
that
didn't
all of
write
them
it,
were
he
written
did
by
have
Paul.
like part in it. Yeah.
Ron J. Scott was talking to Aldebaran, and they got into an argument, and I just got this one. If your first argument is that it's copied stories, I understand your level of sophistication. The argument goes way beyond that. You can track the archetypes of these stories, and if you dig a little bit into comparative mythology, it's very clear that these stories get told and retold and adapted and readapted and retold by different successive, and you can see the archetypes of the stories moving through time and keeping some aspects, and some aspects get adapted to the culture in which they're incorporated. This is very clear. It's not a lowbrow like argument. It's actually quite good.
There are some flood myths from other cultures that predate the
Hi, Brenda.
That predate the Christian text document stories, and they're so similar that if they were presented in an academic environment, you would accuse Christianity of plagiarizing it. But you can approach that in two different ways. You can say, well, that means the story must be true, and this previous culture are just interpreting it wrong, or you can state that actually Christianity isn't true because they've essentially just borrowed their mythology from a previous culture that was also wrong. So, also we need to account for the fact that a lot of this is oral history. It's passed down from generation to generation through storytelling, and then obviously there's the archetypical approach to it as well. Like most civilizations live near a body of water. Most civilizations will have experienced some kind of flooding in their history that caused a massive disaster, and that sort of, for want of a better word, like will leave a scar on their societal soul that is represented.
And then mythology. You have, for example, the Japanese. Japan's flood all the time. Japan floods all the time, so they don't have flood myths because it's not something that happens sporadically, so that they need to explain it. It's something that happens all the time, so they just didn't build a myth around it.
Can I
50 Eyes asks, what IP inspiring philosophy? And this is something I wanted to tell you, Apollos. You reference inspiring philosophy a lot, and I understand that you like him, etc. But he's not the best, and he has so many problems in the way that he argues. I would look into other reference points. There's way better people than him.
Well, I mean, amongst people on YouTube, I don't think you really get better than IP when it comes to like serious Christian apologetics. If just my own opinion, I think IP.
Oh, I disagree.
And like clearly, I disagree with
I
like, a
disagree
lot
as
of
well.
what IP says. Like that's not something that's going to be up for debate for anybody that knows me. But in terms of serious Christian apologetics, I think IP is probably the best you're going to get on YouTube, on the internet, popular media stuff. Outside of that, I would recommend like Richard Swinburne, Alvin Planigo, William Lane Craig.
Yeah.
But I did want to say just to Apollos, because I feel like I just would be remiss if I didn't say it. You are in a room with a lot of atheists right now. Do not at all, and I'm not saying that you are, but do not at all be hesitant to challenge anything that you
Yeah, yeah,
Either
you're
one
free
of
to
us
say
says
yeah.
something,
Whatever.
and you don't agree with it, by all means, speak up. These
Gotcha.
are people that are willing to hear you out and actually have a discussion with you and aren't just gonna like call you a fucking idiot and other things that other people will do.
Now,
Yeah,
generally,
I don't
we
want
reserve that
you
for
to
flat
feel
earthers.
like you don't
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
space to sort of like stand up and say, hey, you said such and such. I don't really agree with that. I think this or that or, whatever it is. So please don't be afraid to express any disagreement that you have with what we're saying.
all right.
Yeah,
let's
for
hand
sure.
over to Apollos,
Um,
and then I want to hear from Brenda. Haven't heard from her yet. Apollos, anything on your mind that you want to about this or about something else? Feel free.
Yeah, for sure. So, I did kind of present it like rather quickly during the debate, but what did you guys think of like the recursive perspective social inferences as being evidence that if an agent acted on behalf of Christ's resurrection, it would likely be Christian God? It's not necessarily proof, but because if lying is in fact a recursive perspective social inference, and Jesus claims that he was risen from the dead by Christian God or something similar to that, then it would be ad hoc for us to suppose intention for like another agent like raising Christ from the dead, like Thor or Zeus or like some aliens or something like that. Because that was a rather novel argument that I've like developed.
Yeah, I haven't heard that before, and I honestly I didn't follow it.
Yeah,
I think
it's
I think it works internally, but if you were going to critique that, so if I'm on the outside and I need you to convince me, I don't think that actually moves the needle much in one direction or another. But if you're already within and you're looking for corroboration, I think that makes sense. If that makes sense.
Okay.
yeah, it'd be a
Gotcha.
very strong
And I also
point.
like. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'd say it would have to be not just that Jesus was risen from the dead, but I think there's like evidence that if you look at like I'm an atheist, but biblical and like what Jesus says on the cross, Father, Father, why do you forsake me? So it's obviously pointing to, and obviously if you look at the prophecy, it looks like it was pre-planned and predetermined. So it's not like just a random event that some guy was crucified for. There's some element of planning when you read the Bible, both in terms of prophecy and what Jesus says on the cross, that suggests that it quite clearly who is, the agent that is causing the crucifixion.
Well,
We
yeah,
were
because
just rated by Mark Reed and the audience. So Mark Reed, welcome. Thank you, Mark. Sorry, I cut someone off.
Everybody loves Mark.
Yeah.
Reed.
Oh, it's Mark Reid.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Mark Reed.
Mark
I
Reid.
fucking love Mark. He's such a good guy. Oh
He's
my god.
so good.
I can't wait till the day, and I say it this way because I know it's gonna happen at some point. I can't wait till the day I meet that guy in person.
Oh yeah.
I have a feeling he's a lot taller than he looks. Like he's probably like 6'4". Dude, Mark's got to be tall. Mark's got to be really
I
tall.
guess so. Yes. Let me hand it
I-
over to Brenda for a moment because we haven't heard from you. How are you, Brenda? And give us some thoughts on the debate.
I did not watch the debate.
Okay.
I just checked in because I know you people. Sorry.
We do know each other.
I
yes.
have been. It's really difficult for me to concentrate on this kind of stuff lately.
Why?
well, we had 4 people murdered today in Minnesota. Well, not 2, 4 severely shot, and you know, it's just too much for me, and it's hard for me to concentrate on these kinds of issues too much.
Yeah, it's tough. The situation
Sorry to
in
hear
the
that.
US is tough, but
Well, yeah, there
we
were 2
might do
people.
some we might talk about it sometime during
Yeah, there was like
a lot of stuff
lockdowns.
happening.
People were told to shelter in place. The guy wasn't caught, and then just in general, the general way things seem to be going, I feel like it's gonna. I worry that it'll affect me personally.
Stay safe. Try to stay safe. Don't go out much. But
yeah, I'm not kidding, because when I don't mean to derail. I'm sorry, but
just a little bit.
a little
But,
bit. When
don't-
I transitioned, when I
Sorry,
was
go ahead.
first seeing a therapist back in the early 90s, I had a card that I could give to the police to say that the reason I was cross-dressing is because I'm under treatment in a gender clinic. And I feel that today we've gone back to that. I worry that today we're kind of going back to that, to where it might not be safe for me to go outside.
Yeah, that sucks.
And so and so given that, it's hard for me to concentrate on theism versus atheism, flat earth versus globe earth. It's just hard. And it it's like,
I understand.
it isn't that I think that, as far as atheist versus theist, I think that a person can be a reasonable person and believe in God. You can believe in Allah. You can believe in the Shinto gods. You can believe in Hindu gods, probably. That's probably even reasonable. And be a reasonable person. You can believe all those things.
Oh, for sure.
And so as far as atheism versus theism, it feels a little bit academic at times, because I know a lot of theists in regular life, and they're decent people. They treat other people decently because they're just part of society. And these kinds of arguments seem to me to be sort of pretty scholarly and academic. Unlike, say, flat earth is different. Those aren't scholarly, they're like elementary school.
Yeah.
But there's scholarly things to be taken from that. But then, I really feel sort of a heavy presence of the real world, and it just kind of makes it more difficult. So I don't mean to bring I am doing it, though. I'm sorry I'm bringing you all
It's
down.
okay.
I'm really sorry.
It's okay. Get it out.
The reason I joined is because I know these people. It was hard to find your channel because Yerba Mate brings up 1,000 different recipes for Yerba Mate.
Yeah, but you got it now. I'm betting
Yes,
that
I
now
am
you're
subbed.
subscribed.
I am subbed. Yes, I am. Yes.
All right.
Yes, and other people should too, because Max is pretty good at this. I'd be willing. Are you going to host debates of your own?
Yeah, if someone wants to debate, we have 3 people who can moderate, so we can move around. So if someone doesn't want me because I'm an atheist, we can have Dr. J or Isa. Yeah, we can host debates if anyone wants. We're always up. Yes. Who said Max?
Do you know anybody that wants to debate naturalism?
Naturalism? I don't know.
Are you taking an opposing side?
No.
Oh.
We got some messages of love, Brenda. We love you, Brenda.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing what you're feeling right now. Stay safe. Yes.
Yes, but I am trying. I don't want. I'm not just coming up here to say poor me. I realize it comes off. It comes off that way, but but it is immediate in my mind. That's why I haven't been around. It's because other things are just more important, and stuff like that, and also I'm getting I'd say I'm a little bit burned out on the flat Earth versus globe Earth debate, not on atheism versus theism, because I think that you can base a career on being on apologia, on apologetics, and the various arguments involved. They've been going for thousands of years, literally, and you can do that. You can't really do that with flat Earth.
Bruce Woolford says, I'd love to debate about preservation of antiques versus the throwaway society.
Fuck the throwaway society.
Yeah, that sucks so hard.
Well, I'm gonna have to head out here in a bit.
Yeah,
all right.
Again, I don't want to bring everybody down and stuff like that, so I'll try to come up with more jokes.
Okay. Apollos, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed the after show, even though, we disagree, but it's a chill thing. So you're more than welcome to join. These are always open panels. You're more than welcome to join. I hope you're subscribed to Yerba Mate Talks.
I will.
And do me a favor. Give me your channel on the private chat so I can share it for everyone. So if they want to check you out, we can do that. And before you go, please give us some final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what Craig's problem was, but now that I'm hearing from you guys, apparently this is his normal way of debating people, which makes sense because his whole channel name's Fight the Flat Earth, FTFE.
Just think of him as Condensed Smug.
Yeah, but that's my channel name. Yeah, I mean, I honestly thought that it was going to be more productive because, how he, kind of backpedaled whenever he was debating Andrew Wilson. But I guess that's not how it was, so, yeah.
I have a question for you before you go.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it sounds like you may have brought up some things inspiring philosophy said in your debate. Unfortunately, I missed the debate. I was at a birthday party, so...
Gotcha.
I didn't get to see it, but I'm definitely going to watch it. How familiar with IP are you?
Pretty familiar. I've been watching him for about 2-3 years. So
okay, what do you think of his digital physics argument?
Yeah, I've heard some controversy around that. I'm not super familiar with it, so I can't speak of it. But
what do you think of his theology? Because as I understand it, 500 years ago, he might have been run out of town for some of the stuff he thinks.
Gotcha. Well,
his views.
500 years ago was the Protestant Reformation, though. So.
Okay. Well, I just picked a number, but there would have been a time. His views would be considered heretical, kind of even today.
Yeah. So, I guess you're referring to his theistic evolutionary stance when it comes to creation. I don't necessarily take it to be heretical because you do see in the early church fathers that they had various interpretations of Genesis 1 through 11. As far as other ways he could be heretical, I mean, he's kept his denomination a secret, so I can't really speak to a lot of the nuances in terms of his theology, but yeah, as far as I understand it, old Earth creationism was a valid option amongst the plethora of diverse interpretations of Genesis that were existent in the early centuries of Christendom. So,
I mean, how far you go back with an argument? To be honest, I mean, there was a point in history at which that Jesus Christ was considered a heretical Jew. So how far do you want to go back? I mean,
well, he was literally crucified for blasphemy.
Well, yeah, it's built in. So you could argue that being called a heretic is the most Christian of things that you can do.
But how was he a heretic though? I'm not understanding it because, as far as I'm aware, but even when it comes to creation, that's not a dogma. Like, what else was there really in terms of calling him a heretic over?
Yeah, I mean,
Did you have any other ideas, Brenda?
I don't know what IP's position is on the resurrection.
Oh, really? I'm pretty sure
What-
he believes that Jesus was physically raised from the dead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
IP,
I have
that's
something
what
to
I
say about
would
that.
Take IP to believe as well, as someone who's
Not
relatively
only would he
familiar.
have to be resurrected, he would have to be regenerated. Just go into private mode on your browser and Google 3-day corpse. I rest my case.
No.
Well,
I'd rather
Yes.
not.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
Not doing that.
yeah, I
So,
agree with Max. I
you-
think that you can't really reverse the variety of thermodynamic
just
processes that would occur.
Google.
So that's the thing too. He was
and the
regenerated,
other
though,
the
too.
other
That's called
thing
the
that I think needs to
transfiguration.
be pointed out is
That's-
that
that's-
Jesus didn't
wait.
resurrect after 3 days. He resurrected after 2.
On the third day.
Friday
Yeah.
into Saturday is 1 day. Saturday into Sunday is another day. That's 2 days. That's not 3. So I don't know how they counted
that's
back
how
then,
the
but it wasn't right.
that's how the Jews. Yeah, he's absolutely correct. That's exactly what the Jews basically like talked about. Like, and that's exactly what Jesus says as well numerous times is and rise again on the third day.
Yeah.
All right, wait. I don't
Well,
want to keep
if you-
Apollos any longer because
Yeah,
he told me
sorry.
he has some stuff to do
Oh,
in the morning.
yeah.
Anything else you would like to say before you go? Thank you so much again for joining us. I hope you had fun and had some you take some interesting thoughts. But you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, for sure. I was just gonna say that like hopefully I can like jump in on whenever we're hosting some interesting debate pertaining to Christianity or something like that. So
We typically host all the after shows about pretty much all debates, so you're free to more than welcome to jump at any time. It's always cool to have.
Yeah, the more the merrier.
people here.
By the way, I would also like to recommend to you a channel. Are you familiar by chance with the apologist Jimmy Akin?
No.
Yes, he's the Catholic apologist.
Correct. If you go to his Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World series, you're gonna have a lot of fun with that.
Gotcha. I'll definitely check it out. Thanks,
Are
Batman.
you a Catholic,
welcome.
Apollos, or are you Protestant?
I am Protestant, but I do find a lot of value in Jimmy Akin's like resurrection arguments, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun coming on here, guys. So thanks
Thank
for
you so
having me.
much. Well
you for
done in
coming,
the
Apollo.
debate, and we'll keep in touch. I added you on Discord, so we'll keep in touch.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
I hope
I
to come
will
around more.
share
You seem very
Apollos'
interesting and
channel
honest.
once again. So if you want to check him out,
Yeah.
feel free. The link is right there in the side chat. Thank you so much. All right. I like Michael. What the fuck is happening to you, my guy? You're like literally like scramble brain typing. If you want to say
Gibberating.
something, click that. You see in the top of the chat, there's a link right there. Just click it and come.
Yeah,
talk
come
to
join.
us.
He says he's
You're
joking.
not making any sense, buddy.
It says Ryan.
Just joking.
I don't know what he's.
Can I just super quick go back?
Oh, yes, we are having the first ban. Fuck you, Michael. Get fucked in the ass.
Well,
No.
that didn't last long.
First ban. I hope that we get Isa's friend, the little
Sergoi
nasty-
Burger. Sergoi
Yes,
Burger.
Sergoi. Yes. Today he said the N word on the MDD chat, and I was so pleased to time him out for like 30 minutes.
Which N word? There's probably
Which
three I
one?
can think of.
Yeah.
It wasn't
the N-word.
nuclear. It wasn't nuclear.
Tori
Okay,
Hansel
wait,
says,
he called
"Why?
somebody a
Wow, I
nerd?
missed his message. Hold on, this one.
Yo.
It's like that will get you banned for being a
I don't
ridiculous
understand
person.
the anti-Semitism stuff. Like, I don't get the harping on it. It's like,
Well, it's
crazy.
because the Jews control everything, and what they're doing is they're
Jews!
trying to immigrate all the brown people into the Western world to get rid of white people, and so that makes the Jews bad. That makes the Jews
That makes
evil, and
total
so
sense.
They should not maybe be alive in Minecraft or something. Is
Yeah,
what they're arguing. I don't know. It's really stupid racism, dumb shit.
Yeah, it is. It is.
The Jews control everything so comprehensively that they were allowed 6 million of their compatriots to be murdered in the
Yes.
20th century on an industrial scale because they're so in control.
Oh, but that's how we got the Jewish space
But see,
lasers
but
on
here's
the
the thing, though,
Italian
too.
vote-changing satellites.
You have more.
That's
than
just
the whole-
that's just 6 million at the hands of the Germans. That's not even counting under the hands of the Soviets.
Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah.
Pogroms in Russia. Russia was a pretty horrible. It's pretty bad.
Bunhammer, boom. Yes. Right.
Joe, sorry.
Yes?
Go ahead.
No,
Joe,
go ahead.
Joe Heron says, I thought we banned them off YouTube. I got a notice just a couple days ago that
Oh my.
that YouTube, no, not a notice, not like that. That YouTube has changed their comment policy and they've loosened it up. They are allowing more talk about like antivirus and some other controversial issues.
Oh, anti-vax bullshit.
Yeah, that and other issues. They're loosening the content moderation.
I've
heard.
I've said some really outlandish things here, and I never got as much as like a warning or anything like that. But look, the band doofus is there. Hey, what do you have to say for yourself? Why did you make that comment, Michael? Quickly, they're there. This is a show. I can't be waiting for you. Hey, did you just come here to do nothing?
That's cool.
Well, he's muted, so I don't know if he's like trying to talk and doesn't realize that.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Oh
Yes.
yes, we can.
All right.
Yes. What do you have
Yeah,
to say for
sorry, I'm
yourself? Why
actually,
did you
I'm
make that
had
comment?
to, the bar's almost closing. It's almost closing time. I'm actually heading out the door. But I want to stay live with you guys, so bear with me. Don't mind the background music. And
All right,
well,
why
it's
did
we can debate
you
times or
make
the
that
walks
comment?
arguing for non-stuck atheism. Believe me, I'm a 8-year veteran of the whole new atheist movement.
Listen.
I
why
love you
did
guys,
you
though.
make
8 years. That's
I know
Hey.
Brando, T-Jump
Hey.
fan, Dylan Monkey, everybody. What's up?
Hey!
Hey!
Listen! Why
What's
did
up,
you
dog?
make the comment that you did? Shut the fuck up and listen to me. Why did
Okay.
you make that comment?
Which one?
The one that got you banned, doofus. Keep up.
I didn't know I was banned.
The one about the
Yes,
Jews.
you
I know
got
it was
banned.
the
live.
third Jew comment. It was a joke. I'm a Jew, whatever.
Yeah, I'm a Jew.
I don't know which one. I don't know where you got offended.
How could I know?
Oh,
Like,
it's all good.
don't make those comments anymore. I'll give you the benefit of the
Okay.
doubt.
Okay, thank you,
But
sir.
also, being drunk here is not the best.
I'm
don't
not
like
even drunk.
But
I'm
you said
slightly
you're at the
buzzed.
bar.
There's a big
Why
difference.
did you go to the bar then?
You know that we're in World War III right now. World War II wasn't World War II till after World War was over, and we're in World War III right now. We have Operation Rising Ariel. Come on, Ariel Shalom.
This has nothing to do with what we're
Hello?
talking about here.
Come on, Max. I know you're part of my blood, right? I'm Mikhael.
I'm down.
Mikhail,
You,
okay. Love it.
right? I might be
Michael.
more like North State Israel rather than South
Michael.
State Judah, but hey, what's up?
Michael, I have a quick question. I
go
want you
for
to answer
Army Airborne
very,
Ranger,
very, very,
military
very
question. Go ahead.
honestly to this question.
Yeah.
Do you
Complete
think
honesty.
that there's any
Transparency.
potential group of people that controls the world?
I believe in dark web, deep state, principalities and powers. That's
Who
really
controls
science.
the deep state?
Principalities,
belief.
and you said you're an
Right.
atheist?
I
But
am
who do you
an
think
agnostic
controls the deep
theist.
state?
The same thing as an agnostic atheist, because they're both oxymorons. Get it?
Well, yeah, I mean,
They're not
agnostic
oxymoron-
atheist doesn't
yeah.
make sense. That's not.
I can
that
give
doesn't-
you
you
a
don't
I don't
even
know
know.
what that means.
argument.
Come back
Prove
when
it.
you're not drunk.
So he,
Yeah, that was over.
he's making the distinction between a knowledge and a belief claim. So obviously he's stating that he can't know.
Are they
that
not
God
the same
exists,
thing?
But
What would
well-
be the difference between a knowledge? And a
well, this
belief
is
claim?
it's philosophically illiterate. This is why people make that they will claim that they're an agnostic atheist because they don't believe that a God exists. But the reason that they don't believe a God exists is because they believe that they can't have knowledge about the ontological facts of the matter with regards to whether a God does or does not exist. So they say
Oh,
they're an
that sounds like
agnostic
an
atheist.
agnostic.
But that's just
I
an
gotta
agnostic.
say,
Yeah, exactly.
when the World War claim came out, Isa lost it, and I love seeing
Yeah, I could see Asa just laughing.
laughing. He was like, Isa, you're the best. I'm so
Isa.
glad we're friends. All right, people, we're going to start wrapping it up. I think we
Why?
covered
So soon.
enough
It's
detail for
it's
the
a
debate.
Saturday. We haven't even gone for 2
Yeah.
hours. What are you talking about?
It's a Saturday,
I-
Max. Just
I-
lie down on the
Yeah,
sofa, have a
but
nap. We'll carry on.
Don't
It's
be a
fine.
My
bitch.
phone is my phone is my phone is
It's your booty call,
blowing
isn't
up.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
your booty
I'm
call,
getting
isn't
the
it?
booty calls right
It is.
now.
Yep.
I
Just give it-
want
Alright,
to
fair
kind of
enough.
pay
No,
attention
fair
to
enough.
Entertain it.
getting
Turn-
We gotta
mute-
be. We have
mute-
to be
mute-
proper wingmen.
Mute the stream. Entertainer behind the green screen for a little while. We'll carry on.
No, she's not here.
You don't trust me and John to manage the stream, Max? We'll do a great job. It'll be so fun. It'll be
Issa,
awesome.
you take over.
There will be no problems. Issa.
Isa, you there?
There he is.
Do you want to take over? Keep it going, because I
That's fine.
otherwise we're going to
Well, look, he's-
find
he's-
out. Find
hang
out.
on.
Yeah, Issa's not a bitch.
our
He'll
way.
keep it going.
Well, if Issa says he has a booty call too, I predict that Issa and Max are just going to be at either end. So-
No. All right. I don't know. If whatever you want to do, Isa, just let me know.
Yeah, I can keep it going, and then
Okay,
it's like
I'll
when
just put
people
you
start
there.
figuring out, that's fine. That's cool.
and I'll come in and out.
Hey, Issa.
Hey,
Issa,
yeah, you
air,
know.
air fist bump. Air fist bump.
Hey,
Hell
hey,
yeah.
hey, Leo. Hey, Leo.
What's
Leo.
up, Brenda?
Leo, the physics guy. I always think of you in physics, right? I want to send you to two places because I hate you and I want your brain to melt and dribble out of your ears. One is the first few minutes of Austin Whitsitt's latest video, where he where he discusses how electrons do not exist.
We are covering that this week. We are covering that this week. Yes.
And secondly,
Can I be a part of
and
that?
secondly, Leo, pay attention. Keith Flatsoid talking about quantum mechanics in the first few minutes of his latest video.
Keith, who was that?
Keith Flatsoid.
Oh, yeah.
Catsoid,
Okay,
Catsoid.
yeah, that guy's.
And he
Oh, no, what is
defines
it now? It's
what
like
quanta is. He defines what quanta are. And when you're done with that, the hospital bill is on me when they.
just ask him if he can define the hypotenuse if he's not that one yet.
But hang
he
on,
can't.
what? Whitsitt? How the?
Yeah.
How does he
I
explain
won't be here
like?
for
How does it? Like
Yeah,
you-
he literally says he says that the electron is it's all theory, but it doesn't exist.
Two
It's
things
theory,
to that.
it's just theory and stuff.
Jesus.
One question.
So-
Question for
9-year-old
John.
could explain to him why
But-
that's retarded.
As soon
One
as,
question
as
for-
we're
Yeah,
done
yeah.
with this,
Well,
we'll
we've
be able to
never
get back to the
directly
topic about
observed.
the debate.
Yeah. One question for John. Have you seen? I'm sure you have. You seen Whitsitt's explanation for the face of the moon? And two, the electron. Most of them I've seen claim that the electron's only a waveform, while missing out the whole wave particle duality. But John, have you seen Whitsitt's explanation for the moon? For the moon phases?
No.
Oh my god.
That's better.
I'm-
That's even better.
I'm fairly new to the whole. I didn't really give
Well,
flat Earth
it-
much.
it
much
is
traction
true.
at all.
John, I'll send it. I'll send it in the I've got a John. I'm gonna send it in the private chat because
I mean, it is true that we don't directly observe electrons. We observe their
Depends on what you mean by directly observed.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, and it.
But his explanation is
I just sent it in the
there's
chat.
a lot of ranch. There's a lot of ranch on his explanation.
Oh god,
Like
it's
just-
covered in ranch and barbecue sauce to the extent that I don't think a fucking pig would eat it. Shit.
And then Flatsoid is even better.
Yeah, the sun rises from the southwest. It's definitely not a floodlight.
But I remember asking Whitsitt if he could tell me what a Hilbert space is. And he couldn't do that. So If you ever hear somebody talking about quantum mechanics and you're like, I don't think you know what you're talking about, ask them if they know what a Hilbert space is. If they say anything that isn't along the lines of a Hilbert space is a space of wave functions for a particular observable or set of observables, then they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I don't know what a Hilbert space is. That's math is beyond me, and that's why you only hear from me things that I can reference to a physics textbook or somebody that's reputable, and I will not opine and propound upon Hilbert spaces because I don't know what the fuck they are. If you don't know something, just stay away from it. That's what I do.
Exactly.
Well,
I pause and I say, Tony, you fill in everybody. What was? That's what I do.
I've just read what Specs has just put in the chat. Witzit's explanation of that is just incoherent bullshit. It is complete and utter nonsense.
Yeah.
Like he's referencing magnetic cycles, ferrocell images, and the notion that the moon somehow recharges.
Oh yeah.
This was Winston on Will Duffy asked him about the face of the moon, and he came up with
Hey,
this.
Here's a question for you. There's a photograph of the Earth, and then we see the moon between the satellite and
That's one of my
and the
favorite
Earth.
photos. Yeah.
And it's the dark side of the moon. And flat earthers reliably ask, how can we see the dark side of the moon?
Yeah, because they think it's actually like dark, as in like you can't see it. They don't understand that it's dark because you can't really get communication in there because it's on the other side.
It's because
and also they don't get
to
to claim a dark side of the moon at all because they argue that it's a luminary disk, or actually don't. So they don't really get it.
What I love is when you ask
they don't
them,
get to bring up the dark side of the moon.
What's emitting the light? They're like, oh, it's just light. Okay,
Plasma.
what's emitting it?
The most common one
and
is
then they
plasma.
don't have an answer because they are fucking idiots and they don't know what they're talking about.
But
Or they just claim they don't have to give one.
Emitting it. It can't. Light just doesn't come out of the ether. Light is emitted by a source. It's an electromagnetic wave. It has to be emitted by something.
Something has to like disturb the electromagnetic.
No.
Field
It's
to
a
produce the
special
radiation.
It's a special photon, John. When photons from the moon hit something on Earth,
Sorry,
it gets cooler. It gets cooler. It takes energy away.
He said Batman said that he logged out and he's I think he's in backstage or something.
Oh, I'm not running it. But flat earthers believe that moonlight is cold. That means it makes an area colder. It makes an area colder. No, that's very common for flat earthers.
Radiated cooling, guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The moonlight is cold, which is actually because you know how they always claim that space violates the second law of thermodynamics.
No.
The idea of cold moonlight actually violates the second law of thermodynamics. They're so fucking thick that they don't realize it.
It's because they don't even understand the distinction between radiation and convection because they're morons.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, Jesus, my physics is rudimentary.
Yeah, same here.
At best. Like, I mean, I did physics at A level, so I stopped any serious studying in physics when I finished college and I went to university. The only reason I really did physics is because I was interested and I knew that I wanted to go on and to study architecture and structural engineering. So sort of like there was sort of material properties and the mathematics that we did in physics was always going to be more than sufficient for anything that I needed for sort of structural engineering or architecture. So I have a wide, very general understanding of the physical principles that govern our universe, and I've done a little bit more reading since. But fuck me, like look, this doesn't even. The only way I can make sense of Witzit's argument here is if he thinks that the moon is some kind of like giant
you can't.
battery
Stop trying. You're just gonna hurt yourself.
with some sort of
Stick
like
yourself in.
magnetic
Yeah.
induction
John,
charging
John, this is
coil. in it,
dangerous to your
or-
health, bro.
Just-
Don't-
John needs to see.
John, this is dangerous to your health.
John, you need to watch the art debate between Daryl and Whitsitt.
I can't wait for the one.
Do you remember?
so
Do
good.
people remember that one? Daryl
Yep.
is an actual physics student.
How would you integrate this and what's it?
Yeah.
Ryan! Hey, Ryan!
moderate
This
this,
is
bro.
it! This is
Moderator.
Ryan, are you
He asked
moderating
me to-
this,
He
bro?
asked me to differentiate. Moderator.
I mean,
Wait. When that clip gets invoked, we have to play
We
it.
have
Give
it.
me
We
one.
have it,
play
don't
it.
we?
Ryan, are you
Yes,
moderating
yes,
this?
we have
Max,
it.
can you wait?
No, I know you have it.
Where's
Max.
that clip?
Fucking
Can
play
someone
it.
link it? I didn't need it.
Yes.
To...
No. I'll link it and I'll play it. All right.
No,
so
I
I'll
just want
put
the
it-
link.
I'll put it here.
Is Leo smoking a pipe?
I am. Hold up.
Fucking hell.
Corn cob pipe.
Corn cob?
What's up, buddy?
Corn cob
Huh?
pipe.
Ah.
Oh,
Goddamn right.
Popeye the Sailor Man over here.
I suppose you've got the Popeye shirt on the go as well, so it fits.
Are they remaking Popeye again? Okay.
All
this
right,
is
here
great.
we
This is
go.
great.
Oh no.
And in school,
Can't really see it.
you did math and you could pass the test and not have to write the answers down. So why don't you tell me, how would you integrate this? What would be the proper way to integrate this?
No, dude, Ryan, why are you not moderating?
Ryan!
Intentionally avoiding every single aspect of the actual debate and the subject, every point that I've made. He came here in complete bad faith, has played clips of me out of context, has tried to do anything but actually have a debate. And now he's like, hey, can you tell me how to do a math equation? Do you not see how this is?
You could just say,
You know why I said
to
that?
be fair, you could
somehow
just say
try
no,
to get a
but
gotcha on me because he couldn't even get.
And in school, you did.
That
Did you hear
would
what Ryan
never-
said? Did you guys
that
hear
would
what Ryan
not
said?
be
He's
funny.
like, to be fair, you could just say no.
All right.
Oh,
I'll leave you.
what are these hieroglyphs, man? He's writing hieroglyphs.
Why did you put your period above the A? Like I'm so confused. Like, why is there a dot above your T? Like, you don't dot your T's, you dot your I's.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense, man. Come on.
Oh wow. Jeez, fucking. It. How the fuck is Whitsitt so popular? I don't get it.
Oh, he is not anymore.
No,
He's trying to build back his reputation among flat earthers, but it's tough. It's tough for him because he.
I mean, yeah, because Oakley hates him. Oakley hates him because
Yeah.
Oakley hates him because he went to Antarctica. He didn't say it, but he pretty much implied that Whitsitt fucked up his argument by actually proving the 24-hour sun. So
Oakley-
Whitsitt,
Oakley
Oakley
hates
hates Oakley hates Whitsitt. They hate each other. It's so funny.
Yeah, well,
hates everybody.
yeah.
Every discussion I've ever seen him in, like he just sounds like his wife falls down the stairs at every opportunity she gets. He sounds like an
His wife left
absolute
him though,
cunt
so
of he sounds like an absolute cunt of a person.
his wife left him though. So
Did you?
there's that.
But
Yeah,
at speed
years
and
ago.
probably down the stairs, knowing him. Yeah, I mean,
You guys
Oakley.
followed way too much of that flat Earth stuff. I don't know how you do
Well,
it.
this is the thing. Like, I didn't. Like, I came to the original channel from a debate that Steve McRae had with a guy called Matt Groen, and he's a theist who said that claimed that atheism was epistemologically stupid. They had a debate, and then these guys did the after show, and that was, I don't know, probably a year and a bit ago. And I'd never really engaged with any of the flat Earth bullshit, like the MDD debates and stuff. But obviously, these guys do the after shows for them, and so basically, I've just picked up a few little bits. Like, I don't know the characters that much, or you know, I literally,
I've been there for years.
I'd expended 0 calories on flat Earth up until a year ago, and I blame Max.
Yeah,
So-
I'm pretty much. I've been following quite a lot because it's funny as fuck just hearing
It,
stupid
yeah,
people talk.
it has an entertainment value to it.
I didn't know much about flat Earth until my first debate with Witsit, like 3 years ago. If you want to watch it, it's on my channel under the title "Witsit Gets It, Doesn't Get Modern Science" because he doesn't. Funnily enough, I've offered to debate him on like the current standing of contemporary theoretical physics in the standard model of elementary particles, and he has not accepted thus far. I wonder why. But like I didn't really like I knew some of the flat Earth arguments because I watched Aaron Ra's debate with Jaren on NSS back when non sequitur show was a thing. I've watched a lot of Red's rhetoric, but like I was not a flat Earth debater. But Witsit said so much dumb shit in that debate.
Yeah.
Holy fuck, I was just blown the fuck away. Like I was like, there's no way this guy just said space isn't real. Like what the fuck do you exist in?
Wait.
What does all matter exist in if space isn't real? What am I extending my arm through, you fucking mental midget? Like what the fuck?
So I met somebody that actually did make this argument. I don't know if this is what Witsit believes, but I'm curious. Does he think space is water?
I don't know.
No, I don't think he's made any claims about what space is. No. That was so I've never seen that in a
we should probably
debate.
draw a distinction between space and outer space. Like if he's saying that outer space.
Oh, I'm talking about space as like length, width, and height. Space.
So 3-dimensional space.
Yeah, space.
All right.
So he
space
thinks
is in the 3 parts of space-time. Where there's, the 3 dimensions of space.
Well, obviously people say we live in 3-dimensional space, but obviously we live in 4th-dimensional space because time. But
4-dimensional space-time.
Yeah.
Space-time.
Just making sure if he was one of those flat earthers that I've heard argue before that space is water.
Space.
Outer space is water. No, that's I don't.
Yeah.
I know. I haven't heard any debates someone say that. I think most of them just say space is fake because it violates the second law of thermodynamics.
He probably heard somebody in its correct context.
When you try to explain the concept of space-time, oh my god, dude. Every flat earther I tried to do that with just completely just goes ape fucking shit. Like they just are like like they just fucking lose their minds.
Yeah, no, because Witsit claims that general relativity and special relativity were debunked.
Yeah. What? But the funny thing is Witsit doesn't know what the metric tensor is, so I don't think anybody should trust any fucking thing he has to say with respect to general relativity.
Do you know how I tend to view the whole flat Earth discussions and things? So, my wife in the UK, we've got a program called Love Island, and basically they get they get a bunch of sort of like supposedly beautiful people, but really they're just all surgically augmented, like with the lip fillers and the fake boobs and like the butt implants and all the rest of it. And the guys spend the fact that most of these guys spend an extraordinary amount of time in the gym but can't spell it. They think it has an I in it. So, but anyway, they get a bunch of these supposedly beautiful people together, and there's always like one more girl than there are guys, and the whole point is that they're supposed to pair up, and then the person who ends up being single gets eliminated, and then they introduce another bunch of cretins, and then they go around again. And I was watching, there's one episode, and my wife watches it, and I was like, what the fuck are you watching? And there was this guy, this girl, and she's like talking to the person who she's paired herself up with, this other lump of silicon, who goes, do you know what carpe diem means, Dwayne? And then Dwayne goes, no, I don't, Stacey. What does carpe diem mean? And then Stacey goes, it means seize the day. And then Dwayne goes, that's interesting. What language is that in, Stacey? And Stacey goes, I think it might be French or something. I could literally feel the IQ points falling out of my ear and shattering on the ground like fucking glass.
Okay.
This is how I look at flat earthers. So.
Can I share, Max? Can I share my screen? This is. I'm going to show Flatzoid, educating us about quantum mechanics.
Oh, that's
Can I do that? Is that okay?
Max isn't here.
Oh, Max isn't here. If I share it, I mean, how I
Can you present it?
Oh, there we go.
You're probably going to need Issa to put you big on the screen, and I don't know if he's. As I predicted, they're both hanging out either end.
How do I present?
Isn't there a present button on StreamYard, like right next to your?
Yeah, but okay. I don't know. Present, but it doesn't. No, I just want to share the screen. Present, share screen, window, this one, share. Can you see it?
No, it doesn't. It's coming up on the stream.
How do I do that?
Not this way.
Yeah, I don't know. There's two. I think you have to bring up my share or something like that, because my share screen is in the background.
Wait, try posting. Brenda, post the link in the chat. I'll see.
Okay. In the back channel?
Yeah, private chat.
That also has a timestamp. Is that working?
Hold on.
So while you guys are fettling with that, can I, Leo? Why didn't you watch the debate? Well, you were at a party or something, were you? Yeah, I mean, just dead air. Jesus.
Oh yeah, I think you need someone to bring it up. Unfortunately.
Yeah, is Issa here? Are you there, dude?
What's up? What do you need? Sorry, I just got a call, so I had to.
Oh, okay.
Because the problem is you need to share the screen.
Yeah, can you
Share the
bring up
screen.
my? I want to share my screen.
Oh,
Can
mine?
you-
Yeah, I can. Let me see. Where is it? Okay. I see Specs has a screen.
I have
I'm
it.
streaming the same thing, so
I have it.
Oh, I got it. There it is. There it is. Got it.
Is that me or him?
That's
is it
you.
you? It's you. It's you. I told.
Okay.
I just had the same thing.
Okay, listen up.
Take notes, guys. We're in class.
We can't hear it. The audio's not working.
The audio's not working?
No.
Okay. I don't know. I haven't shared it before, so I don't know what would be wrong with that.
Well, I can try to show Specs one if this doesn't work.
Links in the private chat. Why don't you show it on your screen, Asa? The links, the latest thing in the private chat.
All right, let me look. It's okay. Give me a second. Melissa Doherty.
Yeah. It's at 2 minutes. Yes, exactly.
Okay, let's see if you can hear this.
No, we can't hear it.
You don't hear it either?
No.
No, I don't know why you can't hear the screens shares.
That's weird.
The guy in the top left went to the bargain bucket when he bought his disguise, didn't he?
There's a Glober that would call him a lesbian Vince Vaughn.
Lesbian Vince
That's PJ. That's PJ.
Have you clicked share audio when you shared your screen, Isa?
There wasn't an option for me to.
Why don't you do, what was the
We
argument that
apologize
was
for
being
these
made?
technical difficulties.
Yeah. Just channeling the boomers right now. So what is the argument? Because somebody like, if we're not going to be able to get the audio or whatever.
Oh, it's better if the guy in the shade says it, who's trying to look cool and everything.
How much did you want to show of this video, just out of curiosity?
Oh, just like 30 seconds or so.
Okay, I put subtitles on, so that might I just showed that part.
Yeah,
Okay.
if this guy thinks this look is working for him, he has serious issues. He looks like he's driving around in a panel van with a bag of sweets labeled bait.
He looks like one of those old neighborhood watch signs.
Sunglasses at night.
He looks like one of those dudes they used to have on the neighborhood watch signs.
Yeah, like, don't. Yeah, it's literally the hat should his cap should say "Don't talk to strangers" on it.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry. I kind of ground things to hold. I couldn't figure out how the audio would work, but oh well. I don't know why it doesn't.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the debate that we saw?
Please.
What are your all feelings about it? Like, just overall, like I want to hear about overall thoughts on the debate. Like, I know, Brenda, you didn't get to see it, but you got to hear some of the understandings of it. But what do you all feel vibe-wise? Like, who do you feel came on top? And who do you feel kind of dropped?
Apollos by a long shot.
Yeah, definitely Apollo with regards to obviously their prep and approaching the subject with a little bit more respect, if I'm being perfectly honest. Craig brought a flat earth attitude to a discussion, what should have been a much more interesting epistemological discussion about, the existence or not existence of a Christian God. And from my perspective on this, like there are a couple of ways to approach it. And Craig did an attempt in one respect and then completely butchered the attempt in the other. Whether a God does or does not exist is obviously there's two states, and they're mutually exclusive and jointly exhaustive. And the more dogma that you pile onto a position, be either Christianity, Islam, Judaism, there's a load of dogma that one group of people believe that puts them in the Christian camp, the Jewish camp, or the Islamic camp. And then you can critique the dogma, and you can compare it to our understanding of physics. You externally critique it, or you can internally critique it, and that tends to be sort of how I look at these religious positions, because I'm not just looking to be convinced about whether a God does or does not exist. I'm also looking to be convinced about which group of people is correct about the character or the intentions of the God. Craig approached this from the position of there is no God, but then very dishonestly took the I'm just not convinced position. And he didn't have enough of a knowledge about the religious position to apply a comprehensive external critique to it. And he definitely wasn't able to internally critique it either. It was just disappointing. Craig, in this particular instance, seemed like a bit of an empty chair. Really, and it just disappointing all around.
Anyone else's thoughts?
Yeah, if you'd like to go first. If anyone else would like to go first. Yeah, so I gave my contributions in that. Basically, I told him to tone that down because he was just basically displaying typical r/atheism behavior. And if you're going to try and make the case for atheism, that wouldn't work in the same way that the interlocutor would act like that to try and make the case for pro-theism or pro-Christianity, whatever. It's not good behavior, And there was definitely plenty of room for an intellectual discussion, but that wasn't what he even wanted to have. And yeah, it wasn't even just the behavior, but even especially too, if you're gonna say atheism is true from his side of the argument too, he does actually have to provide something like what was essentially mentioned is like counter arguments to Christian evidences. And that's another thing that I ended up seeing with him that was typical as well of, you know, new atheists even at the time as well, was that they seem to have this problem of conflating evidence with proof. So that ends up being that same thing as was described. It's like, well, yeah, sure, you're providing evidence, but I don't like it, so it's not proof, it's not evidence. They end
Yeah.
up using those words interchangeably.
Yeah, so that they think evidence and well, I think what they think proof is that that proof is a piece of evidence or enough cumulative evidence to demonstrate that the proposition is correct. And so they would say that proof is a collection of evidence that demonstrates the position. But obviously, proof is a logical or a mathematical term, which is absolute. Proof is only ever used deductively. You can't use proof inductively because proof is an absolute. 2 + 2 = 4 is a proof. There is no other possible answer given the parameters of the mathematics that you're using, and it doesn't matter how much induction you throw at it. So proof is an evidential standard that is just not possible inductively. We cannot reach that. So it's annoying that they use the terms that they synonymize proof for evidence. But I think that's just because they, in the same way as people will say that they're an atheist colloquially when they actually mean that they're an agnostic. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're using the terms incorrectly. But yeah, and this sort of goes back, like I think you said earlier, Batman. Had you or somebody said about the atheist TM movement, TM.
Right, new atheism, atheist TM. That's pretty much what I'm assuming is what was being mentioned when that was first brought up as well.
Yeah, so atheism TM, or at least my understanding of it is obviously TM. When you get the little TM at the end of a word, it means trademark. It's sort of like the word atheist existed well in advance of the new atheist movement, and they picked it up, trademarked it, rebranded it, and now they've shotgunned it all over the internet. And now everybody thinks that atheist just means not convinced, which is bullshit because that's not how we use the term philosophically speaking. We have prescribed languages, we don't have usages because it's a very precise. It's a very precise enterprise.
Right, and to kind of like match up too with what you were saying about just shotgunning it everywhere, it's kind of like in that narrative as well that everyone's born an atheist. And no, that's not true. When you're a child, you don't even know right from wrong. How are you going to know whether or not there's a God?
Well, this is the whole thing with Aaron Ra. His argument breaks down into absolute insanity because he will tell you that rocks can be atheists.
What? I must have missed that one.
Yeah. So because his position is that atheism is a lack of belief and a rock doesn't contain the neurological infrastructure to have a belief in any direction, a rock has a lack of belief, which means a rock is an atheist. So a rock has just assumed a burden of proof under Aaron Ra's paradigm. It's fucking mental.
Yeah, that was so. Even where I was just over 5 years ago, I was born Catholic. I was born and baptized Catholic. I didn't really learn much growing up, and I ended up apostatizing at about the age of 17. For about, I think it was maybe about like over a decade, certainly.
Did you officially apostatize from the church, or did you just stop believing?
Stop believing. Like so even in that way too, I didn't really go to church or anything like that either. Like I would when I still lived in California. And that's because, I had family who went and stuff. But even after that, I didn't go to church. I didn't practice anything. I didn't really, you could really describe it too as Catholic in name only.
Yeah.
And that was also too, like, I didn't personally, I didn't really want to learn any of the other stuff. My interests were elsewhere. I didn't, especially too at the time when I was a little kid, I was more interested in Pokemon. Just gonna be honest. More interested in Pokemon, video games, all that kind of stuff. And especially too when that's right. And when at 17 I ended up at like
American government.
yeah. And so when I graduated from high school, this was when like the new atheist movement came out and started being like extremely like popularized and stuff. So I ended up falling up into that particular crowd, and I did exactly the same thing too, because I know what a Reddit atheist looks like, and because I've been among them, and I was one, where they're gonna watch the debates even too between Christopher Hitchens and let's say like Daniel Craig, or whether or not he's with Stephen Fry, talking about whether or not the Catholic Church is a force for good, going through other debates and stuff. I didn't listen to the opposing argument. That's not what I was interested in at the time. I just wanted to hear the arguments against.
So
that to me sounded a lot more interesting. It sounded a lot more like, kind of like intellectual, especially within the way that it was described. But then what they ended up breeding after it in that sense, like in that way too, the memes that carried on from them just breeded absolute monsters.
Well, even if like Hitchens, Dennett, Dawkins, Fry, Sam Harris, a lot of what they said had merit, but it did breed a type of internet atheist that was just visceral, very they were unbelievably aggressive, in that. And even to this day, it's become a bit of a headache where you'll explain how the philosophical terminology is used, and they will just, like, even though they've read none of it, they understand none of it, they don't have the ability to put the terms atheist, theist, and agnostic in a semiotic square and explain the distinction between them without it ending up in semantics. Because if you use the term atheist as a lack of belief and agnostic as a lack of belief and a lack of because of being able to demonstrate knowledge, then you end up in semantic collapse where atheist and agnostic essentially end up meaning the same thing from the perspective of belief. And that's not how philosophy works. The reason these have prescribed meanings is so that when we say the word
works.
No, I know it's mental. Mm-hmm. Like when we these terms have, it's like there's Joe Heron in the chat here. Just, I don't agree with Aaron Ra on this, but if we were going by definitions, he's correct. The definition is disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of a god or gods. Well, that means agnostic and atheist means the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't mean.
The big thing is that lack of belief is not a doxastic state, so it's not a state that one can assent to on some given proposition. So to say, well, I lack belief in any given particular proposition really is just uninformative. It's like saying, honey, do you want steak for dinner? And then you respond with, well, I don't want chicken nuggets. Yeah, but do you want steak? Well, I don't want chicken nuggets.
And it's funny too,
like,
because
it's not telling you anything. So the thing is, it's not wrong to say that like one lacks belief, but you either lack belief because you both lack belief and disbelief, which makes you an agnostic. You've suspended judgment on the proposition, which is a legitimate doxastic state, or you lack belief because you disbelieve, because thinking that gods do not exist would entail lacking the belief that they do. So do you lack belief because you're an agnostic, or do you lack belief because you're an atheist? Because you can't just merely lack belief. There's going to be some other underlying reason why one lacks belief, and that's what people are trying to get at.
Can I ask you a question, Leo?
I have one fun fact before you do. Do you guys want to know how loosely atheist has been used throughout history? Even the pagan Romans called Christians atheists.
Yeah, they did, actually.
Yeah. Super quickly, so outside of the position of innocence, in this sense, the philosophical sense of innocence is that you are not aware of the proposition upon which
innocence is Graham Oppie, I take it, coined it.
Yeah. So, assuming that you're aware of a proposition, do you think it is possible for a human being to lack belief? Or do you think we all...
Well, yes,
I
but
don't
like
think
I
we
said,
can lack a belief.
I think we can, but you either... Because the thing is that lack of belief in a proposition is a subalternate of either suspension of judgment or disbelief. So to say that one merely lacks belief in some proposition does not specify what it is in virtue of they lack the belief. Do you lack belief that God exists because you both lack belief that God exists and lack belief that God does not exist, which is suspension of judgment or agnosticism? Or do you lack belief that God exists because you believe that he doesn't, which would obviously entail lacking belief that he does? And so it doesn't specify which of those two doxastic states one holds to, and mere lack of belief alone isn't a doxastic state. You can't, which is belief, suspension of judgment, or disbelief.
So,
it's not an ascension to one of those. So it's like I said, it's if somebody asks you, "Do you want steak for dinner?" and you responded, "I don't want chicken nuggets."
So I would recommend that people look up the semiotic square for atheism, theism, and agnosticism, because it puts what Leo was trying to describe verbally in a very simple and straightforward diagram. And essentially, the semiotic square is if you put yourself on one corner of the square, then it tells you, it demonstrates why these are very distinct positions and why you can't simply amalgamate atheism and agnosticism, because it ends up in a completely incoherent. You end up having to occupy two corners of the same square at the same time.
And this is the thing that I think with a lot of like online atheists is, and this isn't to offend them or anything, because I think they're all just brilliant, great human beings, but I think that they just don't understand the relevant epistemology and the relevant philosophy of language with respect to how these terms are understood by experts, like people in philosophy, and not just philosophy, but people in linguistics. The way that they're going to understand terms like atheism are going to be specific. There's going to be something well defined about it. Where atheism is going to be belief that gods don't exist. If you think that gods are not real, if you think that they're imaginary, fake, fictional, they're not real things, that's an atheist. If you're like, look, I don't think gods are real, but I'm not going to say that they're not real, then you're an agnostic. That's suspending judgment on the proposition.
Well, aren't there religious people that don't think that certain gods exist? Like Zeus?
Yeah.
So
I'm sure there are religious...
That depends, though, too, like how they engage with that topic internally. So even especially, too, if you're talking about, like, whether or not Zeus or, Ra or any of them, like, particularly existed, you will see circles, at least within, like, Christianity that I can speak of firsthand, where they'll say those were demons.
Yeah.
So they weren't gods, but, yeah, they were leading people astray from the real God.
And also,
I heard they didn't exist, though.
I heard someone say
demons.
I heard someone say not too long ago that all of those other mythologies, that they were the Nephilim. And I was like, no, you can't make that dark. No.
Everybody loves the Nephilim, dude.
No.
Everybody loves the Nephilim.
The problem,
Stuart says,
Book of
Max,
Enoch
for the
isn't
sake
any
of
help
clarity
either.
around allies, Google 5-man battered neighbor in outrageously violent assault. Seems a new report about Craig. Yeah, I know about that. He's being clean about that. He's told the story. So yeah, you're not telling me anything I didn't know.
With regards to what Brandon was just saying around sort of like and again from the perspective of a debate. This is where what tends to happen is you will end up with a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or insert denomination here, and their position, because they are believing in one specific God, automatically entails that they are a deist and a theist. And from the perspective of set theory, they've accepted that there is the possibility that gods exist, and they believe that gods exist, and then they have chosen their specific god. So when you're having discussions with these people, what tends to happen is you will look at the dogma of their particular religion, and it will have inconsistencies in it. It will have contradictions, and then they will immediately abandon their specific theistic position, and they will do a Mott and Bailey, and they will end up at the deistic position, and then they will start defending the deistic position, even though they can't draw a straight line from the deist position to their specific god. What they don't seem to realize, or they do realize that they're doing if they're being dishonest, is they are now defending essentially all theists from the deist position, because it's very, very, very difficult. You're now in the realm of making a deductive argument about whether it is possible for gods to exist. And frankly, I think we're blocked from this. Because you're at the position now where you need to actually be able to observe the ontology of the universe, and we're not capable of doing that. We're imperfect observers.
Are you saying we can't make deductive arguments for God's non-existence?
I think that you can make deductive arguments for God's existence and God's non-existence.
Okay.
Especially the most popular one.
So we end up at
non-existence is the argument of suffering, particularly to unjust suffering.
Yeah, but that's a specific theistic position. A deistic God doesn't need to be benevolent.
I see. My apologies.
No, that's sorry. I didn't mean to. It was just that's like, you know, God being all powerful and all knowing, and we have free will, is an internal critique of the theistic position, specifically with Christianity or the Abrahamic religions. But an inconsistency there for me would be, well, if God is all knowing and all powerful, then how do I have free will? How do I have agency? How can I do something that
because you can make choices?
Well, I don't.
They're predetermined, though. That's the problem.
I don't know. I don't know if there was free will in some contexts. I mean, can you choose to fall asleep right now? No.
So basically, the way that I would tell you about the argument in particular is like a parent to their child, and the relationship between a parent and child. Parent's not going to force you to love them. That's a good parent, especially, is not going to force you to love them. A good parent's going to want you to love them, even especially to the same way they love you. That's the kind of relationship of why you have free will. You have the choice to reject.
So when I
have a little bit to talk about that. Give me 1 second. I don't think that under because Shifty said this. No, sorry, this. Your free will was given to you by God. The problem is that can you surprise God? Can you do something that God doesn't know that you will do? And most Christians would say no. And I hold that if you affirm that, this gets you into so many problems, because you're basically not making a choice. If God knows what you're going to do, then you're not actively choosing. You're just playing out a script in the macroeconomic of the universe.
Max. Yeah, you're literally an NPC. Yeah.
I don't think that you can say you have free will when God knows exactly what you're going to do every minute of every day. Yes.
I'm going to give you a bowl of cauliflower and a bowl of literal donkey shit to eat. Which one will you eat?
Neither.
You don't like cauliflower? You can only eat a bowl of cauliflower or a bowl of literal donkey shit. You're telling me that you wouldn't pick one. You wouldn't pick one or the other?
I can't eat cauliflower. It's disgusting.
Okay. So you just rather eat literal donkey?
How about this?
No, I wouldn't eat the shit.
Hold on. Let me rephrase this.
Wow.
Let me just make this. Okay, so Max, you can eat a bowl of chocolate or a bowl of literal donkey shit. Which one do you eat?
Chocolate.
Okay. I knew that you were going to pick the chocolate. Does that mean you didn't freely choose to pick chocolate?
No, but the problem is that you're purposely give me a bowl of chocolate and a bowl of ice cream, and then you can't know which one I will choose.
But I mean, God would. But knowing what you will choose doesn't mean you didn't freely choose it. It just means that God would know what you freely choose.
The problem,
but that doesn't remove any freedom in the choice.
I understand. The problem is
You're
that
not
people
all
are-
powerful. God is all powerful in this. The problem is
Right.
it's all knowing and all powerful. If they are all knowing,
Yeah, but
and
God's
all
all
powerful,
powerfulness doesn't have anything to do with our free will because God is not making these decisions for us. He merely knows what we would freely choose in any situation, but that does not entail that he's determining us to make that. Just that he knows what decision we will make.
Right.
It's
but
still
if
a
he
free
knows-
decision.
If he knows, are you actually making a decision? If the decision is known beforehand, since the creation of the universe, God knew that when you came to these doors, you were going to pick the left one. You are not really free to make that choice. You just
you are. Why would you not be?
So not only are you free to make that choice, but God is also aware even why you made those choices and what even led you to make those choices as well.
Well, I don't think God led one to make those choices. I think God understood. So the first thing I would say is that, like, if I offered like any human, here's a bowl of chocolate, here's a bowl of literal shit, I know that the overwhelming majority of humans are going to pick to eat the bowl of chocolate. Does that somehow mean they didn't freely choose it because I knew what they were going to pick? No. If you grant that that me knowing what they were going to pick has absolutely no bearing on their free will to pick that, then it's the same for God. Him being all-knowing doesn't somehow change that scope.
The problem here, Leo, is that
and not to mention too, is like that's all taken into consideration when you're judged after death.
Yeah, but the problem here is the all-knowing and the all-powerful have to intersect with one another. If we're just talking about all-knowing and being able to make perfect predictions about the future, Leo, then I would completely agree with you. But the God in question that we're talking about here is responsible for your preferences. This God has imbued you with your preferences, which means this God, because they are the creator of the universe, everything that they have, every decision they've made, everything they've done has culminated in you as an entity. And everything that they have done that you didn't have control over is responsible for your preferences, which is why you would pick the chocolate over the donkey shit.
I don't think that most Christians would say that God's. I'm just making sure I'm wording this correctly.
Isn't all
that
powerful?
God's providence over natural reality somehow removes our free will. I'm just not seeing.
No, I know
what the
they say that.
entailment is.
It's just it's my thought on what they say that I don't think that you can parse precognition or predestination with free will. I don't.
Yeah,
think
but precognition doesn't equal predetermination. It's
No,
merely
they are different
knowing.
things.
Merely
but-
knowing
yeah,
what
but it
future
entails-
events will happen does not mean that you willed for them to happen in any way, shape, or form. Which means merely knowing what decisions any agent would make in any given situation does not mean that you're somehow determining or willing for them to make any of those decisions. They're still making them freely. You just know what decisions they would make freely.
Right.
They're
but the
still
problem is
making
that
the decision freely.
If you know exactly what someone is going to, like if God knows exactly what someone is going to choose every minute of every day, then are you really just making a choice or just playing out this
of course you
cosmic
are.
script of the play that God
But
set
it's
out
not a
and
script because
set in
God
motion?
didn't will for you to choose those things. He just knows that you will choose them. There's a difference. Merely knowing something doesn't mean that you're making it that way. You just know that it's... I know that the sun emits electromagnetic radiation. I am not willing the sun to emit electromagnetic radiation. My mere knowledge of that fact in no way, shape, or form wills it into existence or obtention. Same thing with your decisions. You freely choose X. God knows that you will freely choose X. His knowledge of your freedom to choose X does not make you in any way, shape, or form choose X. You freely choose to do X, and God knows that you have freely chosen to do X.
So-
that you chose to do X of your own accord. And
It depends.
mere knowledge of that fact does not determine that. And if
can
there's
I-
no connection between precognition and predetermination, then I just don't see what the tension is.
So can I? So with regards to this, so when I speak to Christians and we have the discussion, or well, any theist for that matter, and we have this discussion about around the distinction between predetermination precognition, which there is a distinction between the two. Absolutely, there's a distinction between the two, and being all powerful. So when I have these discussions, my question is, what does all powerful mean? So just because you have a comprehensive knowledge of something doesn't mean that you have power over it, control over it. It just means that you're a very good, you've made some very comprehensive observations and potentially some very reliable predictions. So around, knowing what human nature is, outside of weird kinks, we know that in the vast majority of circumstances, somebody's going to choose to eat the sweet sugar-laden thing as opposed to the pile of excrement.
Donkey
right?
excrement, yeah.
Yes. Well, if you want to be that specific, again, I don't know what kinks you have, Leo, but my point is, and you made the observation around like the sun. So, we know the sun emits EM, but just knowing that fact doesn't mean that we have control to turn the sun off. The problem is in this discussion, when we're talking about free will, when you ask a person, okay, what does then all powerful mean? And I will ask specifically, I'll say, okay, does God, your God, know where every single atom in the universe is right now and its direction of travel?
No.
And its direction of travel. No.
And most Christians would say no. What most Christians would say, or
really?
any Christian worth their salt is going to respond and say, God does not know the position of every elementary particle because you can't. That's just not the.
You can't calculate
that's not
it.
the way it works. But what God does
what?
know is God knows the amplitude, the probability distributions for every possible position that some elementary particle could hold, such that if it was observed in the right ways, it would take this particular position.
I mean, unfortunately, Leo, you are your knowledge around physics. You're obviously trained in this, not based just on this conversation, but on previous conversations that we've had. You've obviously had some training in these fields, which allows you to deal with these questions. The problem that I have is that the majority of Christians that I speak to will not back down from the all powerful.
Sure. But all like standardly in Christian theology, to say that God is all powerful is just to say that God can actuate or actualize any logically consistent state of affairs. That doesn't mean that any logically consistent state of affairs that is brought about by the free actions of another agent are somehow determined by God, merely because God could have made you do something, but that God, so God could make decisions for every agent, but I think that what Christians would say is that God doesn't. He has the power to, but he doesn't exercise that power.
Okay,
he restrains that power in virtue of granting these agents free will.
So with that view in mind, like
making choices.
My position here, and what I think where the wheels have fallen off Christianity, or the atheistic religion specifically, where the wheels have fallen off, and when I say this, I'm not trying to denigrate anybody, but when you're a kid and you've got a present father in your life and he loves you and he looks after you, you look at your dad as like this Superman. There is nothing. He's all powerful as far as you're concerned. He knows everything. He
can whatever the fuck he wants. Whenever.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's no rock he can't lift. There's nothing. And so from our very limited perspective as children, we look at our dads as being Supermen, and then as we get older, as we grow, we realize they're flawed and they have fallibilities. And but my point is, with relation to Christianity, this all-knowing, all-powerful position that they've got themselves in, and as much as I empathize with your position, I don't think that the bulk of Christians will back down from the all-knowing, and I don't think they will back down from the all-powerful. In that,
I agree.
They will claim that if you they will break the uncertainty principle in order to state that their God is all powerful and all knowing. They will tell you that they know. They will tell you that they can tell both the location, direction of travel, and velocity of an uncertain particle, and their God can do that because that's as far as they don't understand what the claim that they're making.
God,
because he's God. Yeah.
Give me one second, please. Stuart, we all know what happened. He has told it live many times. It's not remotely the fucking same thing that happened. So, like, calm your tits or you're out of here. And yeah, this Gigi is a fucking moron. If you're listening to what this doofus Gigi is saying, you're a complete idiot.
Is this somebody in the
just,
chat right now?
Just calm down.
So
Sorry.
sorry,
Go ahead.
Max.
Go ahead.
So
Finish up.
My position with what I think I could be convinced of with a God and have free will is that a God could have created this universe, this localized universe, our visible universe. Let's say I'll grant that ad arguendo. That God, a God could have the power to do that in principle, I think. And when they say that their God is all-knowing, I think that God is knowing with regards to sort of the content of one's character. But we have imbued this God with too much physics-breaking power. And I don't think God can break physics. I don't think God can break causation. So if God is knowledgeable around us with regards to the content of our character, and he is giving us the opportunity to demonstrate it in one direction or the other, even if he already knew what type of character we were, he wouldn't necessarily know exactly what we were going to do in any given circumstance. So for example, he might place us in the position where we're walking down the street and we find a wallet, right? So how virtuous am I as a person? Do I pick up the wallet, take the cash out of it, and then take the wallet to a police station so that the person can get their ID and their credit cards back? There's a degree of virtue to that. I've gone out of my way to return some of the person's property, but I've still also stolen something. Do I return the wallet to the person completely intact with the cash in it because I consider that so do I how virtuous am I as a person? I mean, this is why I tend towards virtue ethics. I think virtue ethics is more useful as opposed to prescribed ethics like a deontological.
I love how none of you are looking at my camera right now.
I know you're mixing a cocktail, Leo. I was going to comment earlier, but I didn't want
to. I just want to say though really quickly is like the problem though with that is that it's not just obviously Christians, but it's also Jews who also describe in their own books God this way, and of course also too within like both religions as well, with the ancient Israelite religion and within Christianity, the Holy Spirit is essentially to the author of the books. So what you end up having too is where you have verses that even say 1,000 years to, or 1,000 years to God is a day 1,000 years. So you already have that, and it's not even supposed to be literal about like 1,000 years. This was also universally understood. This is something too where you do have God being aware of, like at once, he's outside of time and space, because we are talking about a God who not only created the entire universe as well. So why wouldn't he know every atom within it in that sort of respect as well? But he even knows the very number of the hairs on your head, which is also described for you guys.
Well, this is why I make the distinction between character, the knowledge of a person's character, and 100% knowledge of the ontology of a person. So, for example, my wife and I created my son and daughter. I think I have a pretty good grasp on their character, what their virtues are and what their failings are, but I can't tell you, I couldn't give you like an inventory of all of the cells of my son's liver right now. You know, that's the distinction between
not with that attitude. No, I'm just kidding.
What you were talking about, like, does God know where every atom is? I would think from my side that Christians would have to say yes, because if God doesn't know anything, then it's not omni. The word omni means like literally everything. So if there is something God doesn't know,
but
then
you don't have to
the
use
omni
the word
just
omni.
goes away.
You could just say all knowing.
All, it's the same thing. All is the same.
Omni is all.
Yeah.
All
Well,
knowing,
I mean,
all powerful,
is
all
it?
loving.
I mean, all you
It
can do is
is.
say God
No.
knows all true propositions.
All is all.
Yeah.
All,
God
all,
knows all true propositions.
The Venn diagram of all things is a circle that contains all things. The moment you take something out, then that circle, the original circle, that doesn't contain all things anymore.
Assuming that it's the right
definitional.
category of things, like true propositions.
What? No, but even why does God need? Why are you are limiting God even further? Now
No.
God is limited to.
That's
true
just what it means to
propositions?
be all-knowing. God knows all
right.
true propositions. God's not all-knowing if he knows false things, because you can't know false things. Truth is a property of knowledge. You can't know. something
Wait,
that's
well,
false.
you can know false
You can
things.
know, you can
Well,
know
I
that something is false, but you can't know something that is false.
So if I make a proposition,
Oh.
a proposition that's false, can God be
I think I know the way
aware?
you're trying
Can
to
God know that I have made a false proposition?
Yes.
Now, obviously, he knows that the proposition is false.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not talking about. So you're talking about the conclusion. The conclusion drawn from the premises, if it's true, if it's both valid and sound, then obviously God is aware of it. But if I made an incorrect conclusion from two propositions, God wouldn't, in your eyes, he would be aware that I had made a false conclusion.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
So if somebody says that there is no true proposition that includes both the position and the momentum of any given elementary particle at the same time, then God couldn't know both the position and the momentum, because there is no true proposition to be had there. And what it means to be all-knowing is to know all true propositions, such that if something isn't a true proposition or cannot be contained in a true proposition, then God's not knowing it is not in any way detrimental to his all-knowing.
Well,
his being
that-
all-knowing.
And that
I
also
think-
though does include like not just like especially in the Bible too, with divine revelations about things that will take place in the future, but even especially if we talk about like Jesus, how many times does he bring up that Judas is going to betray him?
Yeah, the problem.
Well before it even happened.
I think the problem you've got there, and so firstly, that's a much more sophisticated argument for God being all-knowing than I would suggest that somewhere in the region of 80% of Christians. I think 80% of Christians wouldn't understand that argument, frankly, because, and again, this is the problem, because we don't teach logic and we don't teach philosophy in school. We're great at well, I say we're great. I mean, I think philosophy and logic should be taught in schools. We should favor it just as much as we do maths, chemistry, science.
They kind of been thrown out along with automotives. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. You know,
they're
teach
like,
it.
Taking automotives out is
Treated
fucking
poorly.
stupid.
Yeah,
But
exactly. We use them all the time. Why
Yeah.
would you do that?
Exactly.
But I think the problem is you're stating that God is all-knowing from the perspective of true propositions, right? So what if from the inception of the universe, it was always going to be a true proposition that I picked up this can of Coke and drank from it right now? If that was always a true proposition from the inception of the universe, how did I choose to do that?
Because you chose to do it.
Because I chose to do it. So you're saying that I have free will because I have free will, which is a circular argument.
Well, you have free will because you have the ability to choose.
Especially if we are talking about from the Christian standpoint as well, was you do have free will, because if you didn't, then we would all be forced to believe in God. And that isn't even like applied to angels as well. Obviously, Satan used to be an angel. They all have free will as well.
But no, some Christians will claim that angels do not have free will.
Yeah, well, I'm Catholic. We're the original Christians.
The Orthodox say that they
Yes.
are the original.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's why that's why their
Orthodox
religion
say-
started in 1054. That's why their religion started in 1054.
Wow.
Leo, I wanted to touch on something.
I would love to hear.
But just
Batman say that at some
I do want to point one thing out on that
multi-denominational
though.
conference. You might as well throw a hand grenade into a room by saying that.
I just want to point this out to you. Are you guys familiar with Saint Ignatius of Antioch?
Yes.
Oh,
I'll be right back, peeps.
That's the first use in 107 AD, where we have the words Catholic Church. It says wherever there is the bishop, let the multitude of the people also be, as wherever there is Jesus Christ, there is a Catholic Church. Any other councils do confirm that as well, Pauline,
No,
which the Orthodox affirm.
Leo, I wanted to tell you something because we're talking about free will, and well, I guess that we kind of came to an impasse where I still think that what I think is correct, and you think that what you think is correct. But on another kind of tangent to this topic, like even in secularism, in a secular view of free will, how do you parse out determinism with free will? Because my thoughts are, for example, I never chose that blackberry ice cream is my favorite. It's just that the way my brain is hardwired, I get the most tingles in my brain, in my tongue, whenever I eat blackberry ice cream. So I never chose it. So one could make the argument that whenever you come to that fork in the road or to the two doors, you're only choosing because you have maybe a conscious chain or an unconscious chain of events that led you to make that choice. And that unless you go back in time and you change any of the things in that chain, you cannot make another choice.
I mean, I think you can make a choice. You could choose to eat vanilla ice cream.
I'm just not sure what your distinction, Leo, is between having free will.
Free will is the ability to choose, the ability to make decisions.
Yes. So what's the
determinism
distinction?
is this idea that antecedent factors play a role in decisions made.
So is freedom of choice and free will, they're just synonymous? There's no distinction between the two?
Well,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So well, this is when I said that. So when I said that your argument was circular, like if you said that free will is the ability to choose, so that is your description of that becomes there's circularity there, is there not? If free will and choice.
Well,
is
I mean,
synonymous.
you might say it's tautological. If I told you a bachelor is an unmarried man, all I'm telling you, if we understand bachelor as an unmarried man, then all I would be saying to you is an unmarried man is an unmarried man.
Yeah, but
now that's not circular, but it is tautological.
No,
but it's
okay,
not
yes.
false either.
Yes, I mean that's obviously making a definitional argument when we don't have we don't have
analytically true. Yes.
Yeah, we're not having we're not having a discussion about what the nature of a bachelor is. We are having a discussion about what the nature of free will is. So if free will is synonymous with the ability to make free choices, but we're going back to, okay, how can one make free choices and have free will if the universe is deterministic, or if there's an all-powerful, all-knowing entity? Like we are having the nature of free will is what's up for debate here, which means stating that free will is the ability to choose when free will and ability to choose are synonymous doesn't get us anywhere. We need to take a step back from this and actually work out what the...
Well, I mean, it doesn't get us any further than me telling you that a bachelor is an unmarried man. I still think that's informative. Even though, if what we mean by bachelor is unmarried man, all I'm really saying is an unmarried man is an unmarried man.
Well, definitions are ultimately circular because we define words in terms of other words, so you can always circle right back to... someone did say in a debate recently that, oh, no, you're using a circular definition. He said, motherfucker, that's how language works. I don't remember who that was, but it was like I was losing my mind.
References.
I do want to say something with respect to this discussion about free will, is that I don't know what it would mean to make a decision independent of antecedent factors that play into your evaluation. I don't know what it means to say that you prefer vanilla over chocolate ice cream without assuming all of the deterministic aspects of what vanilla and chocolate ice cream are. So, to me,
of course,
free will or decision making consists in there being antecedent causal factors that provide for the reasons
Yeah.
that we make the evaluations that we do.
So,
And
Right, but
especially
so
too,
I
by the
don't-
way,
So I just to sort of like put that into like a single phrase to really drive home the point that I'm making. I don't think you can have free will independent of determinism.
so
Right, but then we have the same problem that I was talking about. Like, if every moment of your life took you down the path of kind of leading you towards the choice of taking the left door, then are you really making a choice? I can't like really complete that circle. I don't think
Could
you
you
are-
you
choose the
still
right door
you
if
are
you
still
want?
you are still
No.
choosing along the way. It's kind of like too when even if you're being led down a path, it's sort of like what was brought up earlier was like would you choose like vanilla or chocolate? Just to kind of put it in like that way. You went with your choice of neither. That's also another thing too that ends up happening is just because even things too are predictable doesn't mean you're actually going from our perspective especially doesn't
Well, I
mean
mean-
that you're actually going to make like that particular choice. You could decide to make option 3 like you said. I'm gonna choose neither.
Well, and again, the other issue with that is from the perspective of antecedents. So let's say, for argument's sake, you've got a choice between vanilla and chocolate, and you have a preference towards vanilla. And preferences are subjective; they're first person to you. But let's say, for argument's sake, the reason that you have a preference for vanilla is because that's the first ice cream that you were ever given by your parents, and it was before you had the ability to form long-term memories. But for some reason, that stuck with you. The reason that you're choosing vanilla is because of an antecedent fact that is completely outside of your control.
That
Yeah, but
way,
you're still
that's not why
choosing.
people choose like flavors of ice cream. People choose them because of the like. You never made the choice that this is my favorite ice cream. It just happens. You try them all, and it's like, oh, this one is the one that tingles my brain the most.
So no, the reason that what we're talking about here is the reason that you made a selection. So we're not saying that I'm not saying that you are in control of what your preference is. So which one you think tastes better, but the reason let's say you had the free will to choose between chocolate and vanilla, right? You could choose chocolate, but it is predetermined that you're going to choose vanilla because the first ice cream that is because that's your preference.
Yeah,
and the
but your
reason that you have
preference
that
is
preference
predetermined?
is
I
because
don't
something
preference
that's
is
outside
just
of your
sort
control.
of like
Well, hold on, one at a time.
informed.
Let John finish.
So let's say the reason that let's say for argument's sake, the reason that you have a preference for vanilla is because that's the first ice cream that your parents gave you when you were one. You know, it was a soft food. It's sweet. It's tasty.
Question.
I have a question too.
Does having a preference for vanilla mean you can't ever choose chocolate?
No, because if
No.
you had vanilla 6 days of the week and they offer you the choice at the end, you might choose to go with the one. You might have another reason, but vanilla is still your favorite ice cream, and you never chose it.
Yeah, let's say
you
for
never
example,
take the
there's-
choice that
let's
it
say
is
you-
your favorite.
But there, wait,
Let's
wait,
say-
wait. This, hold up real quick. I just want to say real quick though too was like, but there's also a thing too when you're presented that option. There's also an instance where you could sit there and be like, I know they think I'm going to choose this one, so I'm going to choose this one instead.
Well, I would argue, for example, that if I've got 3 ice creams in front of me, all of which I've tried before, and I know which one I prefer, then there's a high probability that I'm going to choose the one that I have a preference for because I am aware of all of. I have a full.
You're going to
collection of
what the
what's
one
in
you have
front
a
of me.
preference for?
I'm going to choose like
Choose.
Don't. Yeah,
Choose.
no,
Okay.
I know. Look, language is very clunky here. You're going to have to give me that one, Leo.
One
it's
second,
built in.
please.
But the
Michael,
point-
come back when you're not drunk. Bye.
Why
But
did you bring him
the
up?
point is, if there's 3 ice creams in front of me, and let's
So
say one of them's I've got
Is
chocolate,
that
I've got
the
vanilla,
neighborhood?
and I've got like a pecan brittle ice cream or something, and let's say I've never tried it before, then I could engage my free will and choose the pecan brittle because then that gives me more information, and I might hate it, I might love it, I might like it more than vanilla. The problem is that I didn't know which one I was going to choose. I might not even have been aware that the pecan brittle ice cream existed as an option to choose until somebody presented it to me. The point is that under the all-knowing paradigm, under the knowing all true propositions, right? According to you, Leo, God knew that I was going to choose the pecan brittle ice cream before I even knew that pecan brittle ice cream existed. So if God is aware of the true proposition before I'm even presented with the choice, how can it be me that's making the choice?
Because it's you making the choice. Because God knowing it doesn't mean he's making the choice. He just knows what choice you're going to make.
Correct.
But you're
I
not.
think everybody in this room right now would say that with certain people, if you offered them a choice between a set of options, you would say you know which one they're going to pick. But I don't think you'd say that therefore they're not choosing because you know
No,
what they're
but,
going to pick.
yeah, but you have an inclination of what the answer could be, but you could be surprised. Someone could choose just to annoy you. Someone could choose because of a chain of reasons. Could choose
And you
something
would
that they
know
would
that
normally
that's what
choose.
they're going to choose.
Right. But you can have the problem is that you're comparing you knowing, Leo knowing with God knowing. I don't think those are the same things. We can predict.
The point
like,
isn't who
you
knows.
can predict
The point
that,
is the status of the knowledge.
You can predict
but God's
that
not using
when,
JTB.
One sec.
That's the problem.
You can predict that when this show starts, I will say my thing, right? So you can't predict that. Maybe I forget because I'm apparently a noob at this, right? So you can make predictions, but it's not the same. Like God knows if I am going to forget it or not. My catchphrase kind of a thing, right?
He knows when you'll get too excited to say it, and you want to go straight into
the
this.
determination of them.
This is hard. I had this conversation on an interview yesterday, and this is very hard. I think we should do another show specifically about this and
That
kind
would
of
be
flesh
sweet.
it out.
Bit of a round table.
Yeah, a bit of a round table, and everyone give their best arguments for this. We're going to wrap it up for tonight. So let's do very quickly, because I really need to go. Final thoughts, and we'll be on our way. Let me start with Batman.
Yeah, I was very disappointed by the atheist side of the argument. I was actually hoping that we would get to talk about healings and so forth. That's a topic I'm actually really passionate about lately too. Shroud of Turin being brought up was kind of interesting on that too. But yeah, generally speaking, yeah, Apollo really won it, just being cool, level-headed, and actually presenting things.
I don't know why Craig couldn't Apollo seems cool. Like I criticized him directly, and nothing happened like in the debate. So I don't know why.
I think Craig has some Craig said it during the debate that he doesn't like that the Apollo and Christian apologists. So he says that they're apologizing for an evil God. So apparently that really gets
right. But
he said that during the debate.
But then the argument, make the moral, which that is a strong argument against Christianity, how they claim to have objective morality, they don't, and also how the Bible portrays God as evil in many, many cases. I don't know what happened with Leo. I wasn't looking.
I think he's just stuck down and spit a drink on himself.
Just in case.
Final, give your final thoughts.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Max
I think
made
it was.
me spill that water because he knew it was gonna happen. Fuck you.
I mean, it wasn't me. It was the almighty cat.
Probably
all hail cat.
Yeah, I think it was just if you were watching that debate for Bloodsport, you would have been very entertained. Like if you were just watching it to, But I think for a proper debate, it was just, Craig's opponent, Apollo, was quite a level-headed guy, and I would have liked to see more substance during the debate. But if you're watching it just to watch someone, like two people yell at each, or one person yell at another guy, you would have met the entertainment value. But I would have liked to see a more substantive debate. And with that, I'll go. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, Specs. It's always great to have you, my friend. Leo, final thoughts.
I'm sorry. I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know, dude. I don't even know. That's the autism. But yeah, I didn't watch this debate, but because I got home 5 minutes before Max went live. But I am gonna go back and watch it. because I've heard everybody seems to say that Apollos was he
Oh, did
agree
he
or
just-
disagree. He did his part, and that's I think that's important. He kind of seemed like somebody who it would be relatively easy to have a discussion with.
Yeah, like talking to Peter or to Dr. J, like these are not, it's not Andrew Wilson, it's not like rim job. Like he's a quiet, like calm dude. I don't know why it went that way.
Yeah, you can have an intellectual conversation with him easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get offended if you say like that you don't believe. He doesn't take it personally. I think it's a great thing. Like me and Batman, when we first met, we had some awesome discussions, but it was like calm. It was cool. It's like,
That's right.
I think this, I think that. And we had many late nights talking about like what each of us believe, and we both understand each other, and we had great talks. I don't know why
Me
it
and
is.
John have had a number of just phenomenal discussions. Agree, disagree, just somebody that you can actually that you can just talk to, that's going to listen to what you have to say, is going to provide a meaningful response to what you said, something that you can engage with that actually carries a discussion forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that to me
no,
seems to be the
wonderful.
definition of a productive discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a mismatch of the crystal energies going on here. Obviously, Apollo was very, very relaxed, very chill. He's obviously quite comfortable in his position, and Craig did his. He brought the fight in the flat Earth energy, and it felt like if. Craig, it felt like he wanted to do this thing, like where somebody says, "Oh, I believe in the Christian God," and then the atheist goes, "Oh, so you're pro leukemia in kids then?" Well, why would I be pro leukemia in kids? Well, but because God's all powerful and He gives kids leukemia, and you think God's all good, therefore leukemia good in kids. No, that's fucking. So and then he'd get really angry about it. He'd be like, "Why are you pro leukemia in kids?" I'm like, "I'm not." It just this really crazy attitude that he brings towards this discussion that may be appropriate towards flat earthers, but yeah, just really disappointed in Craig's position. And again, it's the atheist position. When he's not taking the atheist position, he's taking the agnostic position. And I wish people would stop doing that. I really, really, really wish people would stop doing that. If you're going to turn up to it, it's okay if you're down the pub with your mates and you say, "I'm an atheist," and everybody colloquially understands that means that you're just not convinced by the proposition. I don't like it, but I can get on board with it because it's just a colloquial use. But this is supposed to be a pseudo formal debate setting. So let's use the terminology how it is intended to be used within philosophy and logic. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back and
You're holding them to
listen
a pretty high standard there, John. You think these people know philosophy and logic?
Well, given
they should.
I mean, given how much reading is supposedly being done on these topics, I would expect them to at least understand. But I mean, how can we engage in a debate with a burden of proof when one part of the discussion is essentially shifting the tiles underneath them to try and denude themselves of a burden of proof? Like, this is fundamental to the. You can bring it up a reference book, Leo. What's that there?
That? I don't get it.
I don't either.
Hold on.
What is he doing?
I don't follow.
All right. Wrap up, John, if you please.
It's not in focus, Leo. I can barely see it.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's tiny.
So,
as
this
hell.
is a 1,300-page book. This is a 1,300-page book. Look at it.
Yeah.
It's thicker than my cock. Okay, like this is a thick book.
Dude.
This is a thick book.
TMI.
The point that I'm getting at is Because John mentioned like people like supposedly do reading. This is reading. This is I'm reading this. I hope to have it done by the end of summer. There's a lot of people that don't. And it's really sad.
There was
the problem for me is
there was a bit of a debate happening in the side chat there, to this side. No, sorry, to that side. About abortion. As far as we know, the Bible supports abortion. Sorry.
No.
Yes, it does.
God hates abortion.
Trial of
God
the
hates
bigger
abortion
waters.
so much. Why does it exist?
It's weird. Well, not abortion. Abortion is obviously well understood, but with regards to reading, Leah, I used to read an awful lot. I don't read as much anymore. What I actually tend to do now is listen to audiobooks, which has actually caused me to have a bit of a problem. Most of the time, I'm working with my hands. I'm doing something that doesn't particularly require a huge amount of intellectual thought. So I like to occupy my brain by listening to audiobooks. So at the moment, I'm listening to the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Not a great philosophical text, but it's certainly interesting. But what I'm finding is that I'm struggling. I don't know if it's a product of getting older or if it's a product of how I'm taking in the information. It seems that my brain retains information better when I read it as opposed to when I listen to it. But that seems to be that's counterintuitive, because obviously language spoken language came before written language. So you would think from an evolutionary principle that the spoken language, because it's been around longer, would be able to retain it better. But for some reason, I retain it better when I read it off the page.
All right. John,
with regards,
yes, final thoughts, please.
With regards to the debate, I couldn't find myself agreeing with Apollo's position. I don't think he convinced me. I don't think he'll have convinced many people. But his attitude, his mannerisms were much, 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 much better. Craig just rocked up with a complete lack of humility and just presupposed his position, thinking it reminded me a little bit of First Amender. When he turns up, to the debates around transgenderism, and he just thinks he's going to kick the door down and emote at his opponent without making a consistent argument.
I remember, there was a debate with Amender that the debate prompt was, is it hate speech to misgender someone? And he went on a rant and said, I hate you, red pill guys. It's like, dude, no. No.
Don't you just love it when dumb leftists crash out and you're just like, oh jeez, oh fuck,
yeah,
God, here we go.
But the thing is, in that debate, yes, there was a lot of sort of like a bit of gaslighting and sort of like an intentional winding up of as soon as they realized that they could get under First Amender's skin, they started fucking with him.
Of course.
But the counter argument was very simple. It's like, no, you principally, you have a principal position that a person's gender, self-determined gender, gives them the authority to determine that somebody else needs to use the pronoun that they have elected. Our principal position is that pronouns are inextricably linked to biological sex. So we have two principal positions, and you get to label me hateful because I won't abandon my position of principle, but you won't abandon yours either. So we're now at a principle off. And Amanda could not wrap his brain around it.
John, I'm sorry. I need to wrap it up.
Yeah,
Isa, you there?
Isa.
I don't think he is. All right. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. If you're in the audience, consider donating to your friendly neighborhood channel until we get our monetization. It shouldn't be too long. Thank you, everyone. It was so much fun. Great after show. As usual, way better than the debate, I think. If I dare say so myself, usually people say it, but no one said it today, so I have to say it. Before we go, make sure to do a social thing is like, share, subscribe, send this to a friend, send this to your significant other, go to the corner, yes, the corner of your street, and yell, subscribe to Yerba Mate Talks! And that way we can share the love for the channel. We'll talk and we'll set up that round table on free will. I have everyone's contact. John, you need to, I don't know if you use Discord, but you need to add me on Discord. It's MXXXD, and it's a picture I'm holding a pink vinyl, because emails are driving me like freaking crazy, because I see them sometimes very late, So that would be the best, and we
Oh yeah.
can.
Have you did any progress on the Peter Markley back and forth? That
I haven't spoken to him. I'll speak to him maybe tomorrow.
Okay,
But
cool.
I've just been like super busy with work and stuff. Oh, looks like Isa is there. Anything else? No, Lindsay. Actually, I looked at the thing of YouTube, and it said that I needed 1,000. But then a couple of days later, I checked back again, and another section appeared that said 500. So we're good to go.
Mandy.
We are good on the hours of the channel. So now it's just YouTube takes. It says that it takes 1 week to update and validate the watch hours, and then it might take a week or two until they actually give you the monetization. So we are on track with that. I can't thank everyone enough for that. Isa, would you like to send some final thoughts before we go?
Yeah, I would. I was just going to say about the debate. I think it's important to have sincerity. One thing I also wanted to talk about a little bit, just a closing thought.
If we can, I mean, I need to go.
Oh yeah, I'm wrapping it up quickly.
Okay.
It was like the thing about the new atheists. I thought that was really interesting. At some point, I went really deep into like looking into that. So at some point we'll go deeper and I'll talk more about that. But yeah, I think the debate was interesting, and I think it's important that what I would encourage atheists to do in these dialogues is to just try to learn the material, try to understand it in the light of the tradition, and to engage from that point of view instead of just smugly kind of refuting it and chastising it. It's just not going to go well in a debate. So that's all I wanted to say.
All right. With that, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Hudani. Thank you so much for that. That was an awesome message. Oh, Aldebaran, you rule to aloha.
I have a question before you go.
Yes.
If I called you Mandy, would you be upset?
Mandy? Why?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
If I just consistently started calling you Mandy, it'd probably get on your nerves at some point, wouldn't it?
Yes, because my name is Max.
No, that's all I wanted.
Oh, okay. I get it now. All right. Thank you, everyone. I don't know if we'll have. Are you free tomorrow, Leo? Sometime after 5. Okay, we might do the Witsit thing if you want, if you're up for it. Because oh my God, he cried so freaking much and said so much dumbness. It's so good. So good. All right, we're out. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Love you all. And yeah, we're back. We're fully back. This is great. I love you, each and every one of you.